All right, this is the January chat. This one may be a little lower quality because my sleep is off, but these chats usually wake me up a bit, so we'll see how it goes. Uh, yeah, right now I'm been mostly working on the side videos. One of them takes more effort than usual. It'll just get done when it gets done. I hate saying that because I feel like 3D Realms kind of stained that phrase for forever with Duke Nukem Forever. But I guess if it goes on really long, I'll probably just stall it again and get Freeman's Mind out next after that. Yeah, my plan right now is to have the big side video I've been trying to do or been trying to carve time out to do for maybe 3 years now. A small side video that goes with it. This is all game stuff related. And after that, I was planning to do the follow-up, big follow-up episode for Game Dungeon. And at any point in between Freeman's Mind, if I get a flash of inspiration, then I might switch to Freeman's Mind. But that's the plan at the moment. I'll just keep working on it. And I had a couple of announcements. Somebody's saying I can't say my sleep is off. Well, I'm operating around 4 hours. I've been having this happened I pushed myself pretty hard to make sure that Christmas video got out. I didn't do any all-nighters, but I started getting like militant with my time. Just like around the clock I was editing or finishing it. And then afterwards, it's like my body just wouldn't relax. So what would happen is I would go to sleep, but then it would just wake up at 4 hours and I'd be 4 hours afterwards and I'd be just buzzed and I couldn't get back to sleep. Like it just kind of, and then I might get sleepy like 5 or 6 hours later, but then it might be too much noise going on for me to get to sleep, or it'd be daytime and I didn't really want to. And it hasn't been stabilized since then, but hopefully it'll fix it at some point. The other announcements. I got an email from it's not set in stone yet, but I got an email from Paul Morgan Stetler, also known as Curtis Craig, from Phantasmagoria 2, inviting me on again for Conversations with Curtis. Again, it's not set yet, but he was talking about the 27th. Once that gets finalized, I'll put the details in the description when this goes up on YouTube and on the website and on Twitter and stuff. But I figured if he's asking me to come back, that makes me think he might be scraping the barrel for guests. So I wanted to try to give a sort of a shout out for him to see if the theme of his show is he's been interviewing all kinds of people involved with kind of full motion video games, especially, or just kind of classic adventure games. So he's digging up people who, acted in them or worked on them, like, decades back, that sort of thing. I guess for full motion video, it wouldn't even have to be that far back. There's still a few niche games being made that way. Anyway, what I wanted to say is, what I figure is maybe one of you knows somebody else who knows somebody who is connected to that and would be interested in going on an interview with them. Again, I'm thinking just kind of like well-known adventure games or just kind of any full-motion video game I think would be good candidates for that sort of thing. He said that I don't have all his contact info ready, but he said to contact him on his main thing now is Conversations with Curtis. And he said to contact him on the Twitter, Discord, or his email for that is convoswithcurtis@gmail.com. So CONVOS with Curtis. So yeah, if anyone out there thinks they might know a good candidate to appear on his show for future episodes, please let him know. Or, if you want, you can contact me, rosswscott@gmail.com. and I can relay it, or you can just contact him directly. So, yeah, I'll probably be appearing on a future one, but let's see if we can dredge up some future guests for him, because he's been doing a great job on that. Like I think that show has probably done more than any sort of behind the scenes for any sort of game of that era that I'm aware of, because he's just somebody's saying he can invite the cast to Wing Commander 3 and 4. That'll keep him busy. Yeah, exactly. Anything like that. I feel like that'd be a perfect candidate for it. So yeah, contact him. Again, if you have information or know somebody who has information to anyone who is involved with the industry. Yeah. Somebody's saying, imagine if we got Mark Hamill. That would be pretty awesome. If any of you can can contact Mark Hamill or someone who knows Mark Hamill, that would be. I'm pretty sure that would get a lot of views. So, Mark Hamill would be a prime. I don't know if we'd be able to top that one, but even if it's just a side character, I never went through the Wing Commander games, so I'm not sure of all the characters, but even if it's a smaller role. I mean, I was thinking maybe he can dig up. Geez, I forgot his name now. He was one of the astronauts on Rama, the voice of Caleb. Because I know the game Dusk was able to get him for doing a few lines of the end boss. So, he might be up for an interview. Or, just anyone on Rama or, what was it? Under Killing Moon, the Rex games, or maybe some of those old, like, Who Shot Johnny Rock? Or, I don't know. I feel like any sort of full motion video candidate would be good, but it could just be classic adventure games too. I mean, like Sierra, LucasArts, stuff like that. He's kind of branching out a little bit from what I can tell. So, yeah, Stephen Wade. Okay, he's in Gloomwood. All right. Yeah, Gabriel Knight too. That's another good candidate for actors from that. Or it wouldn't necessarily have to be the actor. I mean, you could try and find directors, writers, or composers or something. Let's try to give them a full roster of guests is what I'm thinking. So somebody's saying he did that already. Yeah, I need to catch up on some of his, but okay. So yeah, that was one of my announcements. I may be appearing, and hopefully more noteworthy candidates will be appearing too. I mean, after that, or they reschedule me. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mentioned when I replied to him, if we get him somebody better, I'm fine with getting bumped down. Like if we get Mark Hamill to say yes, then I'll absolutely give up my time slot, Let's see. Oh yeah, the other announcement. This is another, what I call the abuse of power segment of the show. However, this one actually might help some people or help the videos tangentially. I still haven't found the best way of recording footage. It just depends on somebody's suggesting like the Command and Conquer series. Those would be other good candidates, I think. But I'm trying to, I've been doing experiments on the best method of recording video. I was thinking, if anybody out there already has a capture card that especially for that you could use on PC games, go ahead and email me, rosswscott@gmail.com, because I want to try and set up some experiments. Like I want to confirm the color space is being recorded correctly, but I also want to check frame pacing. And usually the way I do that is by eye. What I try to do is try and find a game that runs really smoothly and has like steady, constant motion, so that if you see like any sort of if you see any point that's off, you can see it if you're like really staring at the footage. Like sometimes I would use Trackmania or what was it, Overload. That's a Descent clone. That game's just buttery smooth when I run it. So any sort of game where you just have like constant motion and it's just really smooth. You know how some games just, even if you're still getting like 60 frames a second, some just feel really smooth. I don't even know why, but maybe it is a frame pacing thing. And oh yeah, that was the other thing. Is I was thinking maybe a capture card can bypass an issue I was having. This showed up in Trick Style and it showed up in Fahrenheit, where if I enable driver forced anti-aliasing, then the frame rate was awful on Trick Style when I did that. And on Fahrenheit, it even has an in-game multi-sampling anti-aliasing option, but if I enable that, then the frame rate turns awful. Like it still plays okay and looks good on my screen, but then when I look at the footage, it's like the stuttering's pretty bad. So I'm assuming that's because it's trying to record like the large resolution, even though it comes back down to 1080 or does something weird with it. So I was thinking maybe a capture card could bypass that, but I wasn't sure. We can try and figure out. I'll see if I can find like some free games we could test or like some game demos or something. But yeah, if you'd be willing to conduct a couple experiments for me with a capture card, if somebody has one, I'd be interested in trying it out. Should have ran David Cage's Celsius. It runs at PAL 60 hertz. Well, PAL's 50 hertz. But actually, for Fahrenheit, I had that frame capped at 30 hertz, actually, because of the frame rate. Because that way the lines didn't get cut off. I'm usually recording the videos at 30 frames a second anyway, but somebody's banned. Okay, well, if it's from the forum and well, whatever. I'm jumping into a conversation that I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but let's see. All the real Curse farms have been banned from something Curse farms related, except the forums. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, you can always email me as like a final appeal, and one or two people have done that, but then they were talking about like really kind of stuff that's like, it's like they were testing the limits of what they can get away with. Like I don't even want to bring it up here on YouTube just to like have the video flag. Well, I mean, it's on Twitch right now, but it wasn't stuff that's like a natural I mean, you can talk about all kinds of things in the forest, but it wasn't stuff that was like a natural transition from talking about games or hardware. Or it was, I'll just say this, it was a topic that there are existing laws on it in the European Union about what you can and can't say. So it's like, because it's like right on the edge of hate speech. Like it wasn't what they were saying is hate speech, but it was like they were testing. So, I don't even police that stuff. But if one of the moderators flagged it, I think those are the only types of people who have been banned on the forums that haven't been like spammers or something like that. But yeah, okay. So I'm getting off topic here. But somebody's saying usually a weak CPU can be the cause for footage stuttering. Well, actually I'm on a donated one right now. It's now I'm on a Ryzen 3950X. So that's pretty decently powerful. I mean, it's really powerful for multi-threaded stuff, but even for a single thread, it's not bad. But yeah, I figured might as well, if somebody has the capture card, we could pick a couple games that would be good candidates for different tests, and then just, you have to upload it somewhere like on Mega, and then I could just look it over and then see what it's doing and then see how the frame pacing looks. Or Okay, people are talking about things they got banned from. So. Okay, so yeah, that was my other request. And this might help the quality of the future videos. Yeah, I mean, I use different techniques depending on. Yeah, I remember when I did the GUI video, some guy was like really trying to ride me for recording using fraps. It just depends. I mean, fraps can be good if you want. Well, see, at the time, like if I wanted stuff completely lossless, as in there's no compression until like the final step. Well, no, I mean there's compression, but it's lossless. So there's literally 0% quality loss. Fraps can be decent for that, and I kind of wanted that more for the GUI video where I might be zooming in on text and fine details, stuff like that. Bandicam used to have issues with the color space, but then they fixed that. And Fraps was more space efficient at the time than Bandicam, but since they fixed that, then Bandicam can be better for lossless. And actually, I'm finding, I found that there was, when I did some shadow play testing, I found there was a little bit of micro stutter. Though I was using an older version of shadow play, and that might make a difference because I'm kind of, I'm kind of boycotting modern shadow play because I'm using the version where you do not, where if you jump through the right hoops, then you can run it without having an NVIDIA login. You know, you can just run it 100% offline. And because I don't want to be in a position like I had with Human Revolution where there was an update and now I can't record and I'm in the middle of the project. So maybe they refined it, but. Yeah, OBS, I'll have to install a newer version. OBS, it's like every single time I used it, I had frame pacing issues. I mean, it was like good enough for streaming, but I'll try. I can try and give it another shot. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I should. Yeah, I should get to the questions. So. Okay, so the first one is, not sure if you've talked about it, but what do you think of the retro shooter resurgence with games like Dusk, A Medieval, Iron Fury, and the like? Sort of mixed feelings because, well, one, I'm happy people who are big fans of these games get it. I'm fine with the reduced fidelity, but what bugs me, well, I mean, it doesn't really bug me, but it's like it makes me not as interested in some of them, is they usually copy a lot of the old school level design. And I don't miss a lot of that. That's why when I mentioned in the Killing Time episode, like I had never seen level design like half that game in a 90s first-person shooter. I mean, because I like that. I like the structure that Killing Time had for a lot of the levels. So, I mean, I don't like the maze corridor stuff that it's just kind of, and it's kind of abstract, and I don't really care for that. But if you were trying to just take more of like a more open world approach, or it can be linear, but it feels like something, you know, like the Half-Life or Half-Life 2, or one of my favorite level designs is kind of like the original Far Cry, where it's like pseudo open, like it's still linear, but you start the level here, your objective's here, and then it's pretty open-ended how you get to it. So I'd like them a lot more if they had like a little more modern design, but that may not be what their fan base wants. I did enjoy Strafe. That one was, it kind of herded you in the right direction. It wasn't too confusing from what I remember. It was really smooth of the gameplay. Yeah, there's more I plan to check out. This is kind of hilarious. I tried playing one, and I couldn't hit 60 frames a second on it. It was Forgive Me, Father. And as soon as you see the screenshots of that, you're going to be thinking, what? You know, it must just be poorly optimized, or maybe they're not doing any occlusion culling or something like that. Yeah, talking about whether a game's optimized or not can be kind of tricky because sometimes it really is just pushing the boundaries to of what you can do with graphics. And sometimes optimization might mean that you have to be on basically John Carmack intellect level to figure it out. Or sometimes, no, there's not really an excuse for the game running this slowly other than just, again, I think maybe that game wasn't using occlusion culling. So, yeah, Forgive Me, Father is one where I'm pretty confident saying that it had some optimization issues. So maybe once I upgrade, I'll give that one another shot. I gave Project Warlock a shot. I mean, it had a nice flow and everything, and the gameplay was good, but I didn't really care for the level design. It had a lot of that kind of cramped corridor feel. I mean, this might sound, hypocritical. I was thinking hypochondriac, but I was thinking, no, that's the wrong word. I'm going to have more of these space out moments, I think, this episode. But I did enjoy Bunker Punks. And that one is a little maze-like, but they give you a real easy map, and that one's sort of half first-person shooter, half roguelike. So you're taking every room very carefully in that game. So that kind of, and you're not really that easily getting lost. So I'd say it wasn't my favorite level design, but the gameplay was pretty solid. But yeah, I played Dusk. I like the earlier levels more than the later ones. I was groaning a bit once we had to go into another warehouse and a factory. I don't really miss those kinds of levels unless they're just really exceptional. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're making them. I mean, I was actually, I mean, I left some stuff out of the Fahrenheit episode because it was getting kind of long, but in Fahrenheit, I was thinking, for this, I have zero problems if people were just to make new games with that fidelity level. I mean, that was a AAA game for the time, but, I'm wondering how much less time and work it would be to make a game that looked like that, or it could be even cruder, really, versus like a modern one where you're having like, pseudo lifelike graphics and you're having all your bump maps and what are the other ones called? For shaders and Phong lighting. My brain's fried. And everything's more hyper realistic. Because you still do have to develop a whole bunch of assets, but I'm wondering how much just being able to cut corners in the fidelity, how much time that actually saves you. So, but I'm fine with them going even lower definition than that. So it's, people are asking several questions. I usually answer those at the end, and I plan to skip more this time because I browsed through them and I was thinking I don't have great answers for a lot of these, so. I'll try to get to more live questions this chat. Yeah, somebody's saying we love sewer levels. Sewer levels, I feel like they could be good. And I feel like I have played a good one, but actually, I wouldn't say it was good, but I sort of like the direction it was going with Hellgate London sewer, actually. Because I like how it was like multi-storied and you kept descending further. I think if you did it right, you can make a sewer level that's very creepy and scary, and that might be but it would take some effort. Like, I can't think of like a great one. Let's see, but yeah, I'm all for it, but I'm not a big fan of old school level design. So I'm fine if we get a little anachronistic on that. But yeah, if they want to keep the graphics, like a medieval, like all the screenshots and the trailer I saw of it, it looked like it had that kind of abstract-esque feel to it where like every room it's like, well, it sort of looks like something, but not really. And I'm not fond of that look. And Ion Fury, from what I saw of it, it looked like it was pretty maze-like. And it wasn't quite grabbing me on the design, even though the visuals were great. I mean, for what I'm totally fine with that look and that kind of gameplay. But however, that said, I may have to play Ion Fury just because John R. Blade's gonna be in the sequel, and I'm definitely gonna want to play that. I've been wanting more Sin, so hopefully they're. Yeah, well, Sin. Yeah, Sin was like half and half. Like some levels I hated, but that was partially because of the stealth aspect. And other levels are great. So, yeah, I say maze-like. I mean the maze where everything kind of looks the same. If it's a maze because it's just so intricate, like there's like a top route, a bottom route, like these side channels or that branch off. And then you just lose track of it because there's just so much stuff there. That can be cool, actually. But if it's just they all kind of look the same and it's like, okay, another room, but was this the room like the other room back? I don't know. It's hard to explain, but complex, and if you're getting lost because there's just so much detail to this, then that can be cool. I like that. But if you're getting lost just because it all kind of looks the same, then that's not as much fun. But yeah, the I forget the name of it now. The Ion Fury sequel, I think that's not out yet. It also had that, what I call it, the PlayStation 1.5 look, where you have definitely improved lighting and models. However, the textures aren't using any bilinear filtering. They're all pixelated. So I'm okay with that look. That's one that never really existed, I think, because by the time you had good lighting quality and models like that, like all the consoles and and PC games have moved on to bilinear filtering and 3D hardware acceleration. Whereas if there was no bilinear filtering, that usually meant software 3D rendering. So it's another anachronistic look, but that's fine. So. Let's see. Okay, but I should keep moving on. So yeah, I'm interested in them, but I'm still a little picky. I'm not into it just because it's mimicking something from the '90s. I mean, I can enjoy modern games too. It just depends. You know. What are your marketing plans for the movie? Will you enter it into an independent film festival, release a trailer, make a movie poster, give out a press release? I don't think I really have press that'll talk to me for that. Put it on YouTube and pray to the algorithm. I haven't given it a lot of thought, though. I figure I don't want to get too hung up on that, and the expression like something like counting money you don't even have or something like that. I feel like it's a little like that. By the time I'm getting to that phase, then I'll be kind of ecstatic and figure it out, no doubt. But I will have a trailer. I might have a teaser to go with it. I mean, before that, I might even do like mini episodes in the same universe as the movie is going to be taking, just as like an exercise. That's undecided, but I'll see. For a movie poster, if I can find the right artist and afford it, I might try to have one made for it. Yeah, or the equivalent of it. I don't know exactly what I'd have. Like one would be to have sort of one idea was to have like a bunch of scenes. Well, I am a fan of like the sort of I think they did this a lot in like the 80s and maybe the 90s some too, where you have like a sort of a collage of like different scenes from the movie that kind of come together so you get an idea of what you're looking at. But there's also maybe something like that, and that also forms a shape that's relevant to the theme of the movie. I won't give away any more details than that, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But I mean, if a film festival will take it, I'll submit it, but I'm not going to withhold that I want to have it out on YouTube, at least at the same time, if not prior. I mean, I'll devote a chunk to the website to it. Maybe by then people have marketing ideas for me also. Like I remember reading an article a while back where these people spent like a small amount of money and they were able to game Reddit so that this just kind of junk article appeared on like the top page. Maybe that's the way to go with things. I wouldn't be, as long as I wasn't spending too much, I wouldn't be above that for the movie. I mean, I wouldn't do it for other stuff, but the movie would be something I would have put so much time into and had a lot of quality control that it would be worth it for that. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I could invest a little bit into kind of stealth marketing like that. I don't know. Yeah, again, that's the sort of thing I'm not going to focus too much on. I would without a doubt, I would rather have the movie done right and garbage marketing than the reverse. So I don't want to spend too much time focusing on that at this point. So far better use of my time focusing on the animation systems and the character model generation systems. Okay. In your video in Fahrenheit, you mentioned that developers almost never make games so you have choices that have a significant long-term impact. Yeah, so like one ending is just totally different than the other. What are some games you enjoy where your choices actually do determine how the story progresses? You know, I said almost never to sort of cover my bases. I couldn't actually think of any that did it how I was describing. I mean, probably some text-based adventure games did, like, you know, real old ones. I mean, the classic example, yeah, younger people might not have even heard of this. In the old days, and I imagine they still have them to some extent, you had choose your own adventure books. And the way it would work is you start reading an adventure story, but then like you come to like a fork in the road. It's like, okay, if you want to head to the old cave, turn to page 86. If you want to head into town, turn to page 34. And then you flip there, and then there'd be another decision. And then, so it would all be kind of contained in there, and you would just jump to the relevant page depending on what decision you made, and you could follow it that way. I mean, I have to imagine some small indie developer has done something like that. Or maybe there's a high profile game that's done it and I'm just unaware of it. It hasn't been, because almost all the big ones that you make decisions on, it's like in that chart, they all sort of converge back on certain events. Like there's always going to be some place that they all end up, you know, multiple times, because otherwise it's too much. It's a good quote in the chat. If you believe in free will, go to page 42. If you don't, go to page 42. Yeah, that's kind of, except you really did have a choice how your story went in the Choose Your Own Adventure books. Okay, somebody's saying Detroit Become Human is pretty diverging. Yeah, I guess, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I've never seen any fully commit, like how I showed in that chart, but I said almost never just in case there was one I didn't know about, because, you know, I haven't played all games. So sometimes there's an element that I feel like it would be so remarkable if I hadn't heard of it that I feel safe saying like this isn't in games. But for something like that, I thought that No, I could see some small indie games doing something like this, or text-based games doing something like that already. So I didn't want to shut it in. And then we have a rant about free will being a myth. Well, I guess I'll have a rebuttal to that eventually if I get that civil protection episode made. Yeah, I mean, I guess what I mean is, okay, they're saying Detroit fixed the decision-making problems with Fahrenheit. Okay, well, we'll see. I'm just trying to think of, well, okay, with Deus Ex. Deus Ex is a decent example. In Deus Ex, like, you do have some agency, and what you do will affect how characters react to you and some dialogue and that sort of thing. However, at some point, you are going to leave UNATCO. And at some point, you are going to, like, yeah, you're always going to go to, like, New York, then Hong Kong, and then Paris. What I'm talking about would be is, let's say you decide to stay with UNATCO. And then, so then your next mission, instead of going to Hong Kong, you're going to Madrid or something in Spain. And that only happens if you stay with UNATCO. See, you don't see it branch off to that degree. Oh yeah, you always have to kill Anna Navarra. That was another decision. So, however, you can save or let some characters die, but you're always going to go to those same locations, and there's going to be similar plot points at each point. Yeah, my voice is going again, but it usually comes back when this happens. But yeah, I haven't seen any just keep branching off, because again, it takes a lot of work to do that. But yeah, I think I left a caption on that. They're talking about the gameplay difference. Now that I'm fine with, and a lot of games do that, where you really can play stealth the whole way, or you can play action the whole way. And I do like that. I do appreciate that. Let's see. So yeah, well, I'll get to Detroit Become Human eventually, but yeah, that one's a demanding game graphically. I'll probably have to do that one at a reduced resolution when I play it. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, I was confused by this one. I might actually skip this one. They're saying you get your hands on a Star Trek food replicator with space enough for 3 patterns to record. What 3 meals do you cook by to scan in for future use? Are people really that interested in like talking about different foods? I mean, it just kind of makes it just kind of makes me hungry when I think about that. But I mean, I don't know. And I mean, I don't know. If I was listening to somebody like have a chat, like an interview, like again, conversations with Curtis, I don't think I'd really want to hear like what are their favorite foods. I'd want to hear like, ideas for future projects, or maybe music styles or movies they like, or just things on views on the world that they have, or philosophy or stuff like that. But it's just like favorite foods. I mean, it's like, I don't know. But I mean, the ones that came to my head are maybe, I don't know, I've been kind of missing Mexican. So maybe like a chicken quesadilla. I like Indian food, maybe chicken tikka masala, and I don't know. I have to think about the other one, but I'm kind of waiting for my voice to come back for a second. This happens. Yeah, I haven't been doing as much voice acting lately, and this tends to happen when I let it go for a while. Whereas if I'm doing voice acting more frequently, then it's no problem. Let's see. So yeah, I'm afraid I didn't have much of a good answer for that, but and then he had all these specifications about the replicator. So, how do you avoid spoilers while you wait for newer games to go down in price? Is it something you even try to do? A little bit. I notice with excuse me. Usually, if you're just following, well, I mean, I mostly follow like PC gaming news. It might be different for like general gaming news sites, but usually, if they're gonna have a spoiler reveal, they give you some warning. Like in, wow, my voice is just dying. Okay, I think I'm gonna take like a 2-minute break and get water, and maybe that'll help. This is definitely worse than usual, so I'll be back in just a minute. It didn't seem to help much, but okay. Yeah, I can push. Okay, I think it's coming back a little bit, but all right. So yeah, game spoilers. That actually was a problem for me when I was working at Machinima for like the 6 months that I was there. Because they would be playing it in the next room. And so I couldn't help but see games. And I was thinking, it was kind of annoying because I figured, well, yeah, I'll eventually play this, but even if I had the game for free and could play it like that day, I would want to take it at my own pace, you know? So yeah, but now that I'm not really working at a game company or game related company, it's easier. And usually from, again, like PC game news articles, they give you warnings. And actually, I remember, or if they don't, I try not to read too much about a game I'm definitely interested in playing. Like usually what I do is if I see some screenshots and read enough to figure out like what the game is about, then this sounds like it's up my alley. Then I'll just put it on the list, and then I generally don't try to read a bunch of details so I can come at it fresh. I'm so funny looking. That's what I say in the chat. Yeah, really look different from different angles too. I think I heard Lincoln was like that. But one I remember was for Cyberpunk. They had a headline on PC Gamer, and they said like features missing from the game that were in the promotional material or that were in the trailers. And I clicked on that, and then I stopped myself. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I've been trying to avoid too many spoilers on that. I don't want to know what's missing because then that's going to prime me to think about what the game's missing instead of just going in and appreciate what's there now. So I'm saying I have the JonTron cough. Yeah, maybe. My voice may come back in a few minutes. Just it's getting a little bit better. I don't know. Yeah, somebody's saying they cut so many features from Cyberpunk. Yeah, so I don't want to know everything they've cut. I'll look at that article after I've beaten the game. Is my attitude on it. So yeah, my voice is sore now, but it doesn't hurt. It's just it just gave out, is what happened. Yeah, this is why I tend to record in sessions for the videos. But let's see. I think it'll come back pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, it might depend. I mean, I guess if all your friends are playing the game and talking about it, then there's not a lot you can do. But I'm playing stuff that, you know, I might be down a different route than what people I know are playing, or they know me well enough where they're saying the game's great. I'll you know, they can maybe tell me about the gameplay or something, but if it's about the story, I'll just tell them, like, yeah, don't tell me. I've actually done that with Magda, where she'll, sometimes she'll watch playthroughs of games I eventually plan to get around to, or occasionally plays them before I do. And I'll just tell her, like, okay, well, don't tell me how it is, you know, because, but yeah, I mean, I guess if you were looking through a bunch of games forums and like reading about the game, yeah, it's gonna be a prime target for that sort of thing. I also remember, but yeah, you never know, because I remember it wasn't too big a deal because I wasn't that invested into it. But when The Force Awakens came out, I hadn't seen it yet, and Magda really wanted to see it in the theater, so we were planning to go watch it there. And I was watching, I think it was James and Mike Mondays. It's like a side video, James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd. And it was just about like this kind of like retro side-scrolling shooter where you kind of revolve around. And like the top comment was a spoiler for Star Wars, The Force Awakens. I was like, damn it. Like, so I guess maybe that gets better at getting downvoted now, but I remember that one got me because it's just like, it was an ambush. It was a spoiler ambush. But yeah, I usually try not to read too much about a game I definitely tend to play. Usually the ones I read about more are ones where I'm not sure if I want to play it or not, or it has like an interesting story related to it. You know, like, yeah, like I read, I have zero plans to play it, but I read about the ordeals of the Final Fantasy XIV housing market. There was a great article on that where this person was trying to get a house and she had to go through, she basically had to like camp outside this time slot where it might become available or so. But yeah, I enjoy like MMO stories, especially if they get pretty interesting. But yeah, I guess just limit your curiosity on a game, I guess, is the best. But depending on your situation, it might be kind of unavoidable depending on who you're around. But let's see. Oh yeah, this was one I didn't have. I meant to think about this one, but I didn't have great answers for it. They're saying they hated System Shock after playing the original release, but after trying out the enhanced edition with mouse look, they fell in love with the mechanics and finished the game and enjoyed it. Is there a game that you've played that shares a similar story? Well, actually, I'm still waiting on System Shock. I figure I'll just jump over the enhanced and go straight to the remake. Because, yeah, I didn't like the initial controls, too. I mean, mouse aiming opens up old first-person shooters for me. Well, actually, I played Blasphemous, and at first I played it, I got to the first boss legitimately, and then I saw the first boss. I'm thinking, I don't want to think about how many tries this is going to take me to beat the first boss. So that means all the other subsequent bosses are probably going to be harder. So I just went and I found a trainer, and one of the cheats was one-hit kills. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll try this, because I was liking the rest of the game. And that ended up being shockingly balanced when I played it. Because I could still die, I still had to get like resources for different things, but yeah, it was one-hit kills. Maybe one-hit kills were a little bit overkill. I think if I could have done like triple damage to your starting weapon, that would have been about right. But yeah, and I enjoyed the rest of the game. I played through the whole thing that way. It was a lot of fun. Well, I was liking it before then too. I know there's other games like that where I just make like one gameplay tweak and then that saves the game for me. Yeah, I meant to think about this one more and then I forgot. Yeah, because I mean, all the enemies were pretty kind of grindy in that, and I feel like if you're gonna have grindy enemies, I kind of want them to be kind of rare, you know. But they were. It was kind of like a typical Metroid style game. So I mean, with the they're saying magic and blasphemous is overpowered. No need for cheats. Do you even get magic by the first boss? So it's saying it's the environment that kills you in later levels. Well, I took no shortcuts in the environment, and it wasn't too bad from what I remember. I mean, I've definitely played much harder platformers than that. Yeah. One-hit kills gives you no advantage towards the environment because you still take as much damage. If you fall down a pit, you die from that. So I'm saying playing Generation Zero strictly offline or single player made the game better for them. Yeah, that's how I intend to play it. I know there's others. I'm trying to think of like what I used the trainer on. Where not only did the trainer help, but I just remember being shocked how well the flow of the game was for me once I did that. Because a lot of trainers you can overcorrect, you know. I mean, without a doubt, that's what I did with Dark Souls. I mean, I didn't get the optimal experience. However, I found that more enjoyable than doing it legit with the Dark Souls cheats that I used. I did the same. I did similar for Dark Souls 2. But I'd say neither one was like optimal for my taste. But Blasphemous, it just felt great. But I guess what Dark Souls convinced me though, no, I found that real helpful playing it legit, and that it convinced me that just probably 90% or more of Souls-like games, I'm probably gonna want a trainer. So I'm not a. I don't know. It just depends. Like some games are hard, but I enjoy it, or I feel like my skill level and pacing is on par for even the hard category. But Dark Souls style gameplay, it's not one that like resonates with me as much. I think I like to go a little faster than how it is. I mean, or if you're going at that pace again, I think I would want enemies to be rare. So. Like the sort of thing where you might wander a while and then you come across an enemy or something like that. I have not played Bug Them, because that's an easy question to answer in the chat. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. I'll try and if I think of any after the chat, I'll try to write it down for next time. Have you found any decent workarounds for the Windows 10 GUI problem, and what are your thoughts on Windows 11? Yeah, I mean, I eventually plan to make the follow-up to that. My desktop, I feel like, is not ready for public. It's not ready for public presentation yet. I want to have it all nailed down by the time I do that, but I can tell you what I'm using. Okay, so for the taskbar, I'm using Nexus Dock. For the system tray, I'm using Nexus Dock. And for those shortcuts buttons, the category ones I had on the side, I'm also using Nexus Dock. You need the full version for that one. Actually, I think you need the full version. I think actually, I think I think the free version you may not need for system tray, but maybe to customize the system tray you do. Not sure, but anyway, it's kind of wonky, but yeah, I didn't, but so was Lightstep. And what I didn't realize was that moving to Windows 10, it's like the Explorer shell is even more wonky in 10 than it was using Lightstep on 7. Like in fact, it's gotten so bad that I have a hotkey mapped to just reset the Explorer exe process, because sometimes if like I come out of like a full screen game or something, then something's off or things don't display. Or one minor bug I've noticed in 10, maybe they patched it, I'm not sure, but sometimes I'll be playing a game, especially if it's in like borderless full screen mode, borderless windowed mode, where the taskbar will just pop up, but it's like in a half hidden mode. So it's just like I have a white bar at the bottom and I have to like alt tab out of it and alt tab back in to get it to go away. And that happens on some games and just seemingly out of nowhere. I think what's happening is there's some background process that Windows 10 thought needed attention, but then it only needed it for a split second, so it just went to that, then it didn't anymore, and that triggered the taskbar to come up. But so yeah, all the behavior on that is pretty similar to what you saw in the GUI video. It just recreated on Nexus Dock. For the labels, like the clock and my drive space labels and RAM availability, that's another one I like to keep an eye on sometimes. I'm using Rainmeter for that. I probably should use Rainmeter for the shortcuts too, because I frequently have to reset Nexus Dock because, okay, I think I might have mentioned this in the GUI video. What I want is to just have the icon representations, but if I hover over them, then the title of what that program is appears immediately, like 0 seconds delay. However, I also wanted that if I'm in a full screen mode, like let's say I maximize a video on YouTube or something, I want that to be hidden. I want it to be hidden on full screen stuff, but then on top for everything else. And there's not really an option to do that with Nexus Dock, because if you do the normal Z order, that'll make sure full screen stuff appears on top. But then if I have another window open and I want to browse by the icons to see like what is the name of this process specifically, that'll appear underneath those windows. So there's not really a winning solution. So what I've been doing is having it always on top and then mapping a button to my mouse to just basically kill the process and then re-enable it as a toggle. But I mean, there has to be a better way for it. But and as for the shortcuts on the side, I probably maybe if I get my act together, I'll try to use one of these pie menu systems where I can just, if I can have a good hotkey for that, to bring that up so they can be split. Yeah, let's see, I have 7 different categories. So I could just go blip, blip, and then just head out from there in the general direction. But well, somebody's saying, okay, in the chat, somebody's saying they're glad they switched to Linux and Windows 7. Hearing about needing 5,000 third-party programs just to customize your UI is ridiculous. Yeah, but there's a whole lot of stuff that I would need on Linux to do what I do on Windows. And some of it wouldn't even be possible, is the problem. So, but yeah, the GUI is one area where you can do a lot more on Linux, potentially, than Windows at the moment. Yeah, I like this chat comment. Windows 10, you are being updated. Please do not resist. Yeah, I have shields up on updates. It does not update unless I want it to. Yeah, okay, so yes, for drive labels, Yeah, I'm using Rainmeter. That's worked pretty well. Um, let's see. What else am I using? Oh yeah, for the start menu, I wasn't able to get it the way I wanted to. Even the way Lightstep had it wasn't like my ideal method. I just had to throw up the white flag on that one. I'm using OpenShell. So it's kind of Windows. I was about to say Windows 7. It's more like Windows 98-ish for how I use it. But I'm not using the start menu as much by having my more common programs streamlined. It's usually because I have a button to click on that brings up all the desktop icons. Yeah, that's all hidden. I'm able to use that. Um, I still need to learn. I still think in the long term, for a lot of operations, I just need to come up with my system for what for Strokes Plus, like for the mouse gestures. I think that's the only way out of the madness for just to get to more efficiency. Oh, for the appearance of things. I mean, that's part of the reason I use Nexus Dock is I can change all the icons to whatever I want. Uh, for I'm gonna transit. Okay, I'll try to get to this quickly. I was gonna use Windows blinds, but that had a bug with the DPI scaling, and I made a post about that in the Win Customized forums, and it basically came out that it was impossible to fix. Then and this guy said, yeah, it is possible. And then somebody comes out with video evidence showing, no, it's not. And then so I said, okay, this guy is either confused or, he does or he has bad information or something. 6 months later, somebody asked the exact same question, and he's like, oh yeah, here's the answer. So it's like, would it have killed you to put that information in my response earlier? So I haven't tested that, but it looks like that might be fixed now. Because the way Windows blinds was working was if you had anything other than 100% of the DPI setting, it would blur. If you have your monitor above 1080, you probably are going to want some DPI scaling. So there should be a fix for it now. So I was partially commissioning. I say partially because it never got completely finished. Someone to help make a Windows blinds theme for me that it was sort of modeled after the blue curve look used in some window managers in Linux, actually. I just generally like the look of that one. So I was going to try to kind of recreate that look in Windows. And we got like 90% there, but he sort of fell off the grid. I haven't heard from him in a while. So I'm probably going to have to go in and finish it myself, and that's going to take some time. The tools for editing window blinds themes, they're not difficult, but there's a lot of it. Like there's many different elements you have to tweak and fix and that sort of thing. And then I'm going to have to do that with, somebody's, in the chat, somebody's talking about volume balance key. For volume keys, I have a hotkey for that. Yeah, I use auto hotkey for the general hotkeys, but so somebody's saying Windows makes you log in. Well, it does. You can turn that off. However, yeah. Well, you can. You might have to jump through several hoops, though. I do not. I have a local install of Windows on my machine, and I don't have to deal with the login screen. It just boots right up to the desktop. Although I have actually created a hotkey for shutting. Well, I had one before just for convenience, but now I almost see it as mandatory. I have a hotkey for shutting down Windows with forcibly. In other words, it doesn't just, it's not like pulling the power, but it tells Windows, no, you will shut down. There's like an extra command to add. Because what I found was when I was just doing like Windows 10 testing a while back, when I told it to shut down, it wouldn't always shut down. Like it would just, sometimes it would get hung up or just suspend or something. I remember sometimes it would just, it might get hung on a process and just not shut down the computer. I remember I would shut down this other system I have. I will walk away, go do something. I come back, the computer's on. I'm like, what the hell? Like, so this way it always shuts down. So, but yeah, I'm slowly getting it together. I'd say the big things I need. Oh yeah, and to change the icons, I'm probably gonna use icon packager for the non-taskbar stuff. So yeah, that's the array of programs I have right now. I mean, there's still room for improvement. And what I plan to do in the follow-up video is, I mean, I'm not a genius on this stuff, so I'm convinced people will have better ideas than I do. But I figured just to kind of walk the walk a little bit, I'm gonna have, I hope to have a mock-up of how I would design like a new GUI for Windows, and I think it would accommodate a whole lot of people. And I think if people saw it, they might say, "Yeah, why aren't we doing it this way?" Like it wouldn't be the most like outside the box way of thinking. It's more like this would make sense. This would work for a lot of different workflows, you know. So, yeah, actually with Windows 10, I also have fast boot disabled because I've heard it can occasionally cause problems, and I value stability over speed pretty much in almost all scenarios on a computer. So, and it shuts down all the way. It doesn't go into like this suspend or sleep mode. So, oh yeah, they were asking what I think about Windows 11. Windows 11, well, I think my cynical take on it, which is probably correct in this case, is that this would have been just a normal, like bigger Windows 10 update, but the number crunchers saw that they weren't making as much money by not releasing a new version of Windows, so they backpedaled everything they said about Windows 10 being the last version and just made what probably would have been like a bigger Windows 10 update. Just, okay, yeah, now it's a new OS because we put an 11 on it, right? You know, so there's, yeah, somebody's saying in the chat, we want to be Apple now. I mean, the rounded corners thing, it's like, whatever. I kind of don't like how Windows 10 looks. I guess I like how 11 looks a little more, but that's not the same as good. I mean, well, somebody's saying, would you use Linux or Mac OS instead of Windows if it weren't for games? Yeah, games and VR. Yeah, if I could do everything I could do on Windows, I probably would tough it out with Linux. But there's a few things I really can't. Like, yeah, well, yeah, somebody's saying Classic Shell is a great compromise. Well, I think OpenShell is Classic Shell. It's just a new name. I consider that a compromise. I consider that like a surrender. Like I can't have a more kind of start menu wherever you want system like that way. But it is better than default Windows start menus for sure. But yeah, like I saw the features they listed for Windows 11, and none of them were really anything that I cared about. They had like the automatic HDR. Look, maybe you can, again, you can say I'm taking the lowbrow approach here, but I haven't been wowed by HDR. I mean, I think colors on my regular monitor look pretty great. I've seen HDR in stores on display, and it definitely is, the contrast definitely is higher, but it's like, I don't know if I really want like extreme contrast. You know, one of the things I love about movies and games is you can look at a sunset and not go blind. I'm not saying HDR will blind you, but it probably, I think that level of contrast might actually put a little more strain on your eyes, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I would get used to it and prefer it. But because I ended up backpedaling on ultra wide. I do prefer ultra wide now. But although if I was really competitive, I would probably want to stay on 16:9. Ultra wide's better for just kind of absorbing everything. More atmospheric and immersive. Whereas if you just want competitive edge, like especially for shooters, like even though you can see more people on the side, you could hone in, and I would argue aim slightly faster on like a smaller screen. But anyway, what are the other features they had? They had direct storage, which I think is basically just streaming more content off the SSD. And fact check me on this, I could have this wrong, but I want to say the Unreal Engine already implemented their own version of that doesn't require direct storage. So like this is already exist. It's kind of like how you have DirectX 12, but you also have Vulkan. I mean, it's that they're meant to be doing similar things, except Windows locks down. Oh shoot! I paused the chat by accident. Sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I think Unreal had some. Now, obviously, not every game is going to use Unreal, but even then, that's not a killer feature for me. I mean, there's some things I really like seeing in games. Yeah, well, again, I've said before, I'm really excited to see what we can do with AI in games. I could see that as being really, I could see that adding a lot to gameplay. But other things, it's like, I mean, it's like, okay, now we can have mega textures. It's like, well, if the textures are a little lower fidelity, it's not a huge deal for me. You know what? They're all better than what I showed in the Trick Style episode. You know? See, that's where my mind's at. It's like, wow, this is all great compared to, like, you know, the 90s textures. I feel like it did bug me a little bit for, like, some titles in like the Xbox 360. Yeah. Okay, there were some titles that were like, you know, either console ports or cross-platform, I remember, from like the Xbox 360 era, that in spots, they would have muddier textures than what you had on just native PC games in the early 2000s. I mean, they would have much they had a lot more polygons and have more effects and everything, and shader effects and things like that. Yeah, normal map. I think that's what I was thinking of the term earlier. But it's, I mean, this isn't the best example because I know I saw it elsewhere, but I remember Rage had really bad texture streaming. So, but I feel like ever since like the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, any game with a major budget just looks great to me now. Like it all looks great. It's like, yeah, okay, I guess some of the newer ones look slightly more great, but in terms of graphics, it all looks great. So we need different things to focus on, I think. But and even then, I'm not. While I can be a bit of a snob on art direction, I'm generally not for graphics. So, I mean, again, I had zero problems with the sort of retro first-person shooters from earlier. So, but yeah, for me, there's no real reason to switch to 11, and I think 11 is we're seeing the beginning of the end, where it didn't start out this way, but I think they've made it now that for normal people, there's no way to install it without like an internet connection logging in. I could be wrong about that. Or I think I could swear they said that was their intentions. So if it's not there yet, they're trying to get it there. I think there are some hacky workarounds, but this is something like a normal user might not be able to do, was my understanding. for Windows 10, if you install it and just don't have an internet connection while you're installing it, then it'll do a local install. But you have to, somebody I know who's a little more in the industry, though he can be more pessimistic sometimes. He thinks 12 is they're going to go all out and just require an online connection. So, I mean, just like all the time. So right now we can technically not use 11 offline, but you're gonna have to jump through a lot of hoops. I had to jump through a lot of hoops just to get 10 under control. So I'm in no hurry to. I think it's gonna be similar to what we saw with. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. It's like I feel like the differences between 10 and 11 are similar to the differences between Vista and Windows 7, like late Vista. They're really not that different, is my understanding. I mean, now, except the difference is 7 got refined more in the favor of users, and it sounds like 11 has been kind of buggy from the get-go. So, yeah, well, I am going to go into more detail on this, maybe not 11 specifically, but on this sort of dynamic in one of the future videos. I imagine a lot of my workarounds might still work on 11, actually, for 10, but I'm in no hurry. It took me, part of it was updating my software because I was just kind of putting it off, but it took me a full 2 weeks to figure out how to lock Windows 10 down and transition everything from 7 to 10 and, figure out alternatives for old software I was using that no longer worked on it, that sort of thing, and workarounds and the UI, bare bones UI modification for my workflow and stuff like that. Now that I took notes on everything, so now that I know what to do, it'll probably go much faster, but then they might have more tricks to throw me off the trail. So some things will work, some things wouldn't. Let's see. Okay, so I should move on. But yeah, there will eventually be a GUI follow-up video, but I have to get my own desktop together first so I can kind of show more of what I'm talking about. Oh, shoot, I forgot to bring it up. They're saying, okay, well, oh, no, I'm missing too many questions. Okay. Yeah, I missed like a page. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah, G-Man comes to your door and hands you a draft notice. You can't refuse, but you are allowed to choose any war, real or fictional, to fight in. Which war do you choose to be drafted into? Chat, feel free to chime in on this one. I don't think I'd want to do a real war because, real wars, so many of them are more about, it's like the chess of powerful people, almost, like historically. But okay, we can probably come up with a better answer. Also, I would prefer a war where I have a good chance of not dying, but I didn't have an easy answer for that. So that aside, I would probably go for the war on bugs from Starship Troopers, just because I hate bugs. So I'd be on board ideologically. So yeah, kill them all. Let's do it. Like I would have no. I would have no hesitation or doubts as to what we're doing. Although I think it's been a while since I've read it, but I think in the book it implied that we were actually, maybe it was the book or the movie, I can't remember. It was implied that actually we were the bad guys in this, that we actually started this by attacking the bugs, and that might have been like a necessity for the kind of military society that was set up in that. But I figure, you know what, I would think, well, I still hate bugs, and it's on now, and our society is never going to let us resolve this diplomatically. So might as well lock and load, you know? Like, I wouldn't have illusions about it, and I still hate bugs. So that would definitely be up there for Starship. Yeah, someone's saying bug racist. Raw. Yes, I am. I hate bugs. I mean, if they stayed on their own planet, that would be one thing. But again, it would already be on by then. Okay, we had suggestions for. Okay, well, somebody's saying Cold War. Yeah, that's a decent answer because yeah, you probably could survive that one. Like, okay, we have 7-hour war. Mario versus Bowser war. I was gonna say I don't think they really had a war, but I guess that is a theme in the movie they're making. I saw a bit of a trailer for that. Let's see. Anglo-Zanzibar War lasted 48 minutes. Okay, well that's something. But then I have no idea on how that went down. So the casualty rate's really high. Then it may not matter how long it was. Let's see. Yeah, well, they're saying the movie, for Starship Troopers, the movie implies there was fascist. Yeah, it was, but it's different. I mean, and see, that's actually, basically, if you're fighting for your survival, that's like one of the few times you really do want a just kind of pure hierarchical order without hesitate. Well, no, I mean, you kind of would. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was like a council of elders, if I recall. Yeah, and there was voting, but I was thinking back to Battlestar Galactica. That was another area. That was one area where. I disagree. Somebody's saying Hyland's book is so much more clever and deep than the film. No, they're both very clever. You're only looking at the surface level. The film is satire. You need to read between the lines on it. And the film's actually, it's kind of like RoboCop. It's dumb fun on the surface, and I think it's kind of brilliant underneath it. And actually, I think there were some things the film did better than the book, where they like in the classroom, they were saying, you know, like he was asking, what would they? Oh, geez, my brain's fried. He was asking, like what they would in the book. He was basically asking to like justify. He was asking about like was the violence ever justified? And in the book, he gives a more long-winded answer, and he's saying, well, if that's not good enough for you, then you might need something like a philosopher or better answers than what I can give you. And then in the movie, they combines that and saying, what would the victims of this bombing say? It's like nothing. They died. Exactly. It says violence has solved more conflicts, and that works itself well into the imperialist society they're portraying. And it's funny too. There were multiple times they did that where, yeah, like in one of the funniest parts of the movie where he's, you know, he's the different recruits, you know, he's saying, the Neil Patrick Harris character, he's saying, going into PSYOPs, he's saying, I might be saluting you one day. And then the guy at the desk, here's Carmen's going into the Space Force or the Imperial Navy, or I forget whatever it's called, and saying, yeah, we can always use more pilots. And then he hears he's going into Marines, he shakes his hand, says, congratulations, son. Marines made me the man I am today. And then you see him turn and he's missing both his legs. That wasn't in the book. It's a different style. It's a different style. Like but No, I think the movie, and the movie has much more humor. Yeah, I might be mixing up the part with the classroom with the knife exercise where he's saying, yeah, the enemy cannot throw a knife if you disable his hand. There's something. Yeah, the enemy cannot press a button if you disable his hand. So the movie, and they basically got the same, or in my opinion, a wittier response that the book would take a page or two to do in just one sentence, and it was funnier. Like there were multiple parts like that in the movie. So, yeah, at surface value, it's obviously much dumber than the book, but it's, uh, yeah, there's a lot of food for thought. Like you could have a philosophy class devoted to just what's in Starship Troopers about different things there and bring up different questions. It was, yeah, there's a lot of clever stuff in the movie. So if you don't think there is, it went over your head. You got to look closer. So, yeah, okay, I agree with that. They're saying the first movie was the best, the rest weren't as good. The later ones are pretty bad. I remember I think the second, I don't even know if I saw them all. I think I saw at least two more after that. They really had B movie writing level. They were not good. Yeah, there's no comparison really. I mean, some movies are still pretty good or maybe not as good. Others just fall off a cliff. That fell off a cliff. So. Yeah, actually, I saw that recently. The movie Goon is hilarious. That's like way up there. It's part of my favorite comedies. It's a hockey comedy as Sean William Scott starring in it. He does a great job in it. I started watching the sequel. I gave up after 10 minutes. The director just didn't get it at all. They didn't get what made the first movie good at all. So yeah, sometimes sequels fall off a cliff. Well, somebody's saying Hyland really thought this was the ideal society. Well, there's definitely flaws to it. However, I'd say if you wanted to throw a bone in Hyland's direction, you could argue that it's possible humanity can get its act together more if we did all have a common enemy, because we do have a history. Humanity has a history of banding together to face external threats. So, even like former enemies, will cooperate with that. So there is something. So that is a thought worth exploring. That is an idea worth exploring. That, like, okay, well, if you have a society that's always at war, then these kind of more normally draconian methods or something might actually make sense, and you might have more of everybody being on the same page and instead of fighting each other. So there is the question of how much of that is part of the human condition, that we're gonna fight somebody. It's so better that we fight an external force than each other. But I mean, I think that's an open question as to how endemic that is to society or humanity as a whole, or whether it's just that the people who do think that way tend to have a propensity for becoming in charge. That there's that too. So, there's nothing fascistic about the society portrayed in the book. It was meritocratic. That was the whole point. Well, I mean, I remember you couldn't vote while you're still in the service. That was a point, and that that I mean, if like the leaders got more detached from what was the right decision, yeah, then they're kind of exercising their control over. I forget. It's been a while since I've read the book, but it's yeah, okay. There's a lot going over Heinlein. I've only read a few Heinlein. I've read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'd portray either of these as like an ideal society, but it's an interesting one. You know, I like science fiction stories about like kind of alternative societies. But my answer for Starship Troopers really is as simple as just like I hate bugs. So fine, I can get behind that. If we're just gonna bomb the hell out of bugs or shoot them down or just stop them from spread, whatever. Fine, let's do it. Okay, we're the bad guys. That's unfortunate, but we're committed now. So now it's a humanity survival thing. So we made our bed. Now we have to sleep in it. And I could be more at peace with that than, you know, killing other people over some cause or something. That's because a lot of it's just kind of like games by the elite. Whole lot of wars are like that. And even ones where it does seem to be more black and white with like the good guys and bad guys. Sometimes it's not. Like sometimes you have like intelligence like trying to bring about that war. And then once it's started, okay, then we send in troops to go to get the war that we were doing, the war that we were trying to provoke covertly. Or there's war is not helpful under humanity. However, if it was against an extraterrestrial threat, that's a totally different scenario. So. Yeah, like actually I heard in World War II, well, yeah, that was something they tried to fix for Vietnam. Well, they showed a lot of that in, was it Full Metal Jacket, that they really tried to bolster people psychologically with the idea of killing by the time we got around to the Vietnam War. Because what they found in like earlier wars is, you know, most people by default don't want to kill other people. So they might aim and shoot above the heads of the others so that they weren't. So the military didn't get the kill rate they were looking for. So they were trying to focus more not just on tactics and training and, you know, obedience and equipment and everything, but also like trying to break down those barriers more psychologically. I think by the time we got to the Vietnam War for military training. So it's, yeah, I mean, just killing strangers in a uniform, that's not really, for the majority of people, that's not really innate thing. It's like you have to feel threatened and really feel like they're the ones that are this threat for most people. I mean, obviously some people just shoot whatever moves, but so yeah. Well, it's like I said in video chat a while back, war is basically collective murder, and it's not helpful. It's basically a last resort option in a sane world. And even then, it can go many different ways. So, yeah, so war is to be what I said was war games are awesome. Actual war should be avoided at just about all costs. I mean, in fact, I've actually had the thought before that maybe a few people in the military just haven't played enough war games. Yeah, I mean, war games are great. I mean, I could do those all day. And not just video games. I mean, stuff like, like airsoft or paintball or something, where you have like tactical objectives and things. That stuff's a lot of fun, so. But, it's good to distinguish between a game versus murder. So. All right, I should get to more questions. Are there some Japanese shooters that you really like? You mentioned some you didn't like in the Tyrion episode, and I think there were plenty that would suit my taste. And he mentions UN Squadron had a proper health bar. Thunder Force series has instant respawn after losing a life. And some shooters will take away power-ups instead of lives when hit. Do you always prefer vertical to horizontal, though? I do. I can't even explain why. I mean, I've played a few horizontal ones, but I really prefer vertical. Yeah, I can maybe check out some more of those. I'm sure there's a lot I'm unfamiliar with. But it's just, those aren't the ones that get attention. You know, those aren't, or as much attention. Because I think some of the most famous ones are what? Like, Raiden Ikaruga, if I'm saying it correctly. Geez, I have to look up more of them. There's, man, I have to think more of some of the others. It's just that a lot of them are brutal. And when you say Japanese, it kind of depends, well, how Japanese? Like, are these games that were only released in Japan? And if you tried to, yeah, Toho, that's another one that, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Okay, someone's saying UN Squadron is a bona fide classic. I'll have to check it out then. But yeah, some of them only released in Japan, and even then, if you get to the menu, there's no English. It's all Japanese characters. So yeah, that could be definitely a deterrent for me. But yeah, well, Raptor Call of Shadows, of course, played that one, but that was on the PC. That's not where most vertical shooters came out. Yeah, in fact, if somebody wanted, and even then, even if the difficulty is brutal, if it came out in the arcade, that means I can finish it, because then I can just keep putting in virtual quarters. So yeah, I mean, if somebody wanted to shoot me a list of like ones they think I should play, I could hunt down those and go through them. Vertical shooters are great if, like, I want to play a new game, but my brain's too fried to want to deal with a learning curve, because you just get in and you start shooting, and you have a game with a lot going on in it, like, right away. So vertical shooters are some of the best for just, I don't have a lot of time, or I don't want to think too much. I just want to play a game like right now. It can be great for that. So someone's saying EDF, or like Earth Defense Force. Well, isn't that kind of like a different genre? Yeah. But yeah, you can send me a list. I mean, I generally like the kind of spectacle of them, you know, and the atmosphere of it. I don't know. And it's weird because I don't even know why. I don't normally like most top-down games. Like strategy games, like real-time strategy ones I can like, and like ones that you're flying overhead, you know, vertical shooters. I tend to like those. I mean, I don't hate them, but they're just not my favorite, like the pure top-down stuff. But for those click in my brain for some reason. So, okay, we have a repeat of an earlier question, so now I should start getting pickier. Oh yeah, somebody's asking, do I use a smartphone or a feature phone? Neither. I unfortunately still have that Nokia you saw in the, which video was it? Was it a VR? Oh yeah, I think, was it the Dream Software one? I forget which, it was from a couple years ago. Maybe it was the Games List one. I need to, I think the phone company said I need to switch chips soon. So I have a hand-me-down smartphone. I don't even know the difference between what a smartphone and a feature phone is. I'm the wrong person to ask about phones. So yeah, okay, the Games List video. So the chat's saying. Uh, so yeah, I still have that one. That's the one I've been using because if a lot of people were calling me, I'd probably move over to something sooner. It's just I've been basically nobody's calling me. I just have it as kind of a requirement for living in society. Yeah, before I moved to Poland, like all my friends kind of one by one just sort of spread to the four winds. So where I was living, at one point it was basically just all my friends moved out one by one. So for jobs or whatever. So yeah, by the time I moved here, I didn't have much tying me back. So well, now I just kind of keep in touch on like instant messenger. So it's or email. So I guess I don't really use phone as much. But yeah, if I had a more normal social life, obviously I'd probably be more on top of phones. But I'm okay. I noticed this question, so I'll answer it quick. What's your take on the current monetization issue with YouTube? They're silently demonetization and age restricting more videos as of late. I was unaware of that. I think I said before uh, that what the I kind of see all the YouTube changes as like multiple rounds of Russian roulette, and I've managed to survive multiple rounds. So who knows what they're gonna do next? Like I just assume they're just gonna do something that's gonna be really not helpful at some point in the future, and this thing they keep proving that. Yeah, and somebody's saying I know about a lot about computers, but not phones. Yeah, I just don't really care. I mean, it's like there's a whole lot of yeah. I mean, you could better ask me questions about VR or new CPUs or GPUs or yeah, or I knew about direct storage or like what SSD technology. So in some cases motherboard chipsets, though I don't usually follow that so much now. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot you can do on a phone that you can't do on a computer outside of like the mobility of it. So let's see. Yeah, well, I'm not a recluse on purpose. I just, it, it's just how things sort of shook out. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, so I have no idea the opinion of the GUI for mobile OSs. You're better off asking somebody else about that. Uh, let's see. You say you wait for games to get discounted to a price of a sandwich or less, or less. How do you know when that happens? Do you have some notification system in place? I'm usually lazier about it and wait for like the big Steam sales, or usually around when Steam does a big sale, like GOG also does one around the same time period, like maybe a week before or something like that. Or yeah, like winter and summer are the big ones. Uh, sometimes autumn. I mean, fall sales can be decent too, but sometimes I just stumble into different ones. Like I remember they had like actually, I'll check it every now and then. Fanatical.com can have sometimes bundles that can be a pretty good deal. And they can have bundles that you can pick. So they'll have like a choice of like 12 or 15 games, and then you can buy them, and then they'll be like $1 each. And they're usually not like the top tier titles, but sometimes they have titles I really was looking forward to. So it's kind of a mix of things with that. But yeah, I usually just wait for the big sales. Like if you were like, and then just try to stock up. Uh, like if you were gonna pick one time period, I would just wait for the summer sale. That's usually when you have the biggest discounts. And just anyone else who is running a summer sale, like Ubisoft or Origin or I mean EA. Although EA, I try to get even cheaper. From EA, I've taken I've taken a gamble on the sort of, was it the gray, I forget what it's called. I can't remember. There's sort of gray sale sites where you might be buying keys that are stolen or mispurposed from a promotion or something. Like was it G2A? But you can buy it with an authentication option to ensure that you're not buying a bad key, which is something that they shouldn't even. Gray market, yeah. For EA, I usually get ones like that, but I don't buy many EA games now. They got me on that yeah, Need for Speed 2015, 2016, but that I couldn't get an English copy. Yeah, actually, I think I bought that one through Origin too, and I wasn't reading the fine print. And the thing is, it's not that I picked that instead of the English copy. It's just that I did not have the option. The only way I could get that would be through a third party, which is just kind of pretty backwards. I'm sort of interested in the newer Need for Speed one that they have. I don't even know the name of it. It's the one after Heat, I think. But I'm in no hurry. I can wait till that's dirt cheap, you know. Okay, so I'm saying, any opinion on the British version of Utopia? I guess I'm not aware of the show. Although I am aware of an old web show called Utopia that was, it only had 2 episodes, but it was pretty funny. Here, I'll give a link to that. It's probably a different style. I'll have to look into Utopia. I usually like kind of science fiction shows. It's probably Unbound since 3 different people are saying that in the chat. So let's see. It's saying you often speak about art design, and architecture when doing Game Dungeon. Are said topics things you'd like to discuss more if you had a whole different show, or assuming you have more time? Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. I'd rather just go and explore the worlds, see them for myself, you know, in VR, you know, or exaggerated versions of them, even better. Since you cover a wide range of subjects and topics in your video chats, have you considered having a small shout-out segment at the end? They'd love to get a glimpse into some of the sources, content creators you follow find interesting or inspiring. This implies I have enough in my memory of like what to post or people to promote or something. Well, I mean, I did this time for conversations with Curtis, but most of the time, I mean, I may not remember it unless it's kind of relevant to the conversation. I do sometimes keep notes, you know, when I mention, oh, I'll have this link in the chat for, you know, like just now I mentioned, I'll have a link to that Utopia show I mentioned, and then I put down notes for that, and then when I put it up on YouTube, I put that in the description. So, and if I ever forget those, you can remind me. I usually get them, but I think there's a few I might have forgotten 1 or 2. But, so yeah, you might actually want to check the descriptions to some of the video chats sometimes. So they can go all kinds of different places. Okay. Do you follow the rule of never idolizing anyone? If you did, or do you idolize or look up to someone? Who is that person and why? What changed, if anything, did? I mean, I guess, yes. I follow that rule, although I don't really think of it as a rule. I always thought it was kind of weird. Maybe it's just due to my exposure. I think the first I ever heard of the word idol was from like the 10 Commandments, where there were worshiping, from the Bible, they're worshiping the golden calf, and it's just utter and complete hedonism, So that was my association early on as to what an idol is. It's like, okay, this is like a false god kind of thing, or just, something there's no morality to it at all. And it's just something people are worshiping idea. So, so then when I saw like later stuff like American Idol, and it's like, to me, it's just like, they really name it that? Like, is that the wise way to go about it? It just struck me as like, well, that's not how I would use it. I mean, in things, maybe Indiana Jones mentioned it, and things like archaeology or other cultures, well, then it makes more sense to say idol, because that's what they were worshiping, their god, and it's idol from your culture's perspective. But for them, no, that was their god. So, or gods. Or I guess sometimes you can I have to look up the definition. I feel like an idol can also be like a representation of the god. But, yeah, so I always thought of like idolize as like, I always felt like if you're idolizing someone, just the definition of the word means you've already gone too far. Like, so it, what, yeah, I guess I never, I haven't put other people up to the status of gods. So, I've never had that problem. I mean, I guess a few people I've looked up to, well, I mentioned earlier, Paul Morgan Stetler, though I wasn't really following him so much. It's just that I was really impressed by Phantasmagoria 2. So it's kind of surreal being able to talk to him. And another one I also got to talk to just by accident was Alexander Brandon, where Tom White met him at a convention and invited me along for the interview. And yeah, that's on Tom's channel. I think I have a link to it somewhere on the site, but in the Weird Video Games channel. Because I was just really impressed by his music. But yeah, I guess I mean, I guess it would be, it's not a good idea to just put people up on a I guess if you're going to put people up on a pedestal, do it for the right reason. Like I'm think my first thought was like in the last video I showed Fahrenheit. So I would put Jackie Chan up on a pedestal for his martial arts ability and his, stunts and things like that. I don't know much about his life beyond that. But for those skills, yes, he is certainly one of the greats. So if look at him through that context, like, I think you're not going to go too wrong then, because maybe maybe the person you're looking up to does have something bad in their personal life, or maybe they're not that good a person even, but you can still respect whatever field it is you looked up to them to begin with. Like, hey, I barely know anything about, was it Danny Way, which I mentioned in the Trick Style video, but I know he jumped the Great Wall of China on a skateboard, and I think he set records for verticality on a skateboard, so he has skateboarding skills, so that's what you should look at him for. Let's see. And even like people who have like changed history for the better, like I think like Gandhi, I don't know a lot of details of his personal life, but I think he does have some stuff that, maybe wasn't very good. However, he did liberate India using nonviolent means. And that's something to take note of almost regardless of what was going on in his personal life. Or, I think, geez, I tread carefully here, but I think Martin Luther King Jr., I think I heard he might have had affairs. I'm not sure. If that's completely incorrect, I'm not sure. That doesn't discount a word of what he said about, equality of races and, or just, just treating people better in general. And especially something like an affair, that's something where that's like a personal moral failing, like a weakness. That can be the sort of, because for some people, they can mean to act better, but then they don't. It's, again, I don't know the details of that. And the thing is, you have to be, especially once you get into like more serious things like that, because the imperial side is only going to be too happy to point out the failings or the misgivings of them, because that plays into the narrative. Oh yeah, so they were bad about this stuff. So yeah, you really should forget all that other stuff about nonviolent resistance and overthrowing authority and how the law was wrong. Yeah. So this guy was terrible. So don't pay attention to anything he said. That absolutely serves their narrative to do that. So I think it's really important to like look at like what you kind of look up to them, what makes them noteworthy people, and to focus on the idea more than the person. Um, and to counter that, I also feel like there might be a bit of a narrative, especially with that line that people love to keep repeating from Batman about what you live long enough to become the villain. No, that's not true for everybody. There are genuinely decent people. Okay, maybe I'm risking things here, but I want to say like Mr. Rogers was like as far as I know, a decent person his whole life, or maybe Bob Ross might have been another one. So there are just generally just decent people. So that's not always true. It does. In fact, I saw a funny Penny Arcade comic on that where they're saying, so a YouTuber you looked at is a sexual predator, and then they have like a book published on because it's such a common instance of it. I'll link to that comic too. So I think there might be a higher ratio of that with some public figures, maybe especially on YouTube, because if someone is a narcissist, they're of course going to want lots of public attention. So that can have an overlap with lots of like shady or bad behaviors. So it can that can change. So your sampling might be skewed then. It's and somebody's saying Justin Roiland. I don't even know who that is. So, yeah, it's let's see. I got lost in the details now. So yeah, don't assume someone always has some skeleton in the closet, or they're just wearing a complete mask of who they are, because it may not be like that. But I think it's better to focus on the idea and the concept, and if this person is very, very worthy in that field, then that's worth paying. That's the part worth paying attention to. Yeah, like I mentioned, Alexander Brandon. I know very little about his personal life. I guess more since the interview, but to me that changes nothing about his music. His music is fantastic. So sometimes you can separate the two. Though I can understand sometimes if somebody does something really bad, then some people just can't like separate the two, because all they can see is like the ugliness. So, but yeah, in general, I'm not. I guess I find ideas and concepts and things more interesting than just like the life history of individual people, unless they've lived very interesting lives. Like one person who I would like to see more, to know more about, perhaps, was a John McAfee. I heard his account of what happened when he was living in Belize and had to flee there. Regardless of how true it is or not, or maybe he exaggerated, or maybe it's 100% truthful, just his account of what happened there would make a solid like suspense thriller movie. Like if you were to just adapt that, like a building suspense movie, like they just, I mean, it would have maybe the best ever, and that's just one incident. So I mean, who knows what was going on with him? So yeah, that's someone who's led a life that like, okay, I'm interested because your life is going to have a lot of interesting stories in it. Yeah, I've heard a nickname for him. Fortunately, the late McAfee was the actual most interesting man in the world, or the real most interesting man in the world. So yeah, but yeah, it's okay to look up to people and just keep your fingers crossed that they're not a creep. So. But yeah, don't revolve your life around it. Let's see. Okay, somebody's saying thanks. I try not to I try not to spend too much time on. You're welcome. I try to spend too much time on these because, again, I always try to like look at things when I can, from other people's perspectives. So if I was watching an interview with somebody, I would be interested in hearing them say like funny or interesting things, or maybe ideas I haven't thought of before, and not read a bunch of messages of people saying thank you to them, because then it just feels kind of like circular and not that interesting. I appreciate it. I'm not always the best at taking compliments, so I just that's in fact that's part of the reason I'm behind on so many emails actually. So I'm glad the videos I'm glad you've appreciated them. I plan to keep getting more out. I feel bad I don't get more out. However, I haven't cracked the code for getting more videos out and maintaining the same quality level. And I'm very wary about reducing the quality level in terms for speed. So, and then once I get the movie out, I'll kind of be at peace with the release rate, because I'll made the movie and it's not that that's going to be like the end all to everything, but I feel like that'll be sort of like a personal life goal for me that I've done, that I'm kind of more at peace with things, even if I can't keep up to what would have been a better rate for people. So, so I'm saying every time you get a new VR headset that's better than the last, what's the first game or experience that you try on to see how much better it looks and feels? Well, there's not necessarily one, because I was gifted the DK1, and during that time there were only just kind of fringe demos for the most part that you would probably have difficulty getting even to run now. And then the DK2, by the time that was also gifted to me, and yeah, these are both hand-me-downs. And by that time, Oculus had moved on to the consumer version. So I tried a few demos, but I tried VorpX. Yeah, I guess VorpX, which is kind of a cop-out answer because it's like whatever game I'm interested in trying out at the time. So, because that opens up a lot of doors for other games. But yeah, I don't have any one specific one yet. And there always tend to be limitations over doing more mainstream ones, because the DK2 didn't have neither the DK1 or the DK2 had controllers. And now that I have controllers, it has a flaw in it. So I'm doing a lot of VR stuff that you don't really need a controller, like the mouse and keyboard works. So I did Skyrim VR, some of that, and I also did there's a mod for the GZ Doom to have Doom engine games in full VR. So I looked around in Strife with that. Right now, although I get more motion sick from that than I do from like Vorpex stuff. I was holding out to have a wide field of view, which I think the only players in that right now are StarVR, Xtal, and Pimax. And Pimax is the only one having anything even remotely close to price for consumers. And I was really keeping my fingers crossed on the Pimax 12K, which they said was coming out fourth quarter 2022, and they haven't said anything since then, so I don't know what's going on now. I was kind of holding off because most games are, even doing the 3D projection thing, are kind of 16:9 aspect ratio. So I thought, oh, well, it'll be better to kind of wait till I have the wider field of view. So I was trying to limit myself to 4:3 game aspect ratio games. But the problem, quotes, is that there's been a lot of patches to get those working in widescreen. So I've got to find stuff that just, there's really nothing for it that I can get working in VR, and it was only 4:3 stuff. I think the best candidates actually might be like emulating older consoles. So like PlayStation 1 and 2, stuff like that, maybe GameCube, stuff that even if you can get it working in widescreen, it's going to have a lot of artifacts and not look so good. So it would be better experience to play at 4:3. So maybe we'll be doing more emulated games on that next. But okay, I'm going to skip some questions just because I don't have great answers for them. I'm not even sure how to answer that. They'd say, what do you think can constitute as creative monster design? You can go all kinds of different directions for monsters. In fact, I think there was like a blog or maybe Reddit or something where there was like monster a day, where this person was drawing a different monster every single day. So maybe it'd be worth looking into that. I mean, there's all kinds of options for monsters. I don't really have any general advice. Oh yeah, I'll talk about, okay, chat, tell me if I talked about this last time. They're asking about Unreal removing, Epic removing the Unreal games and some others from stores. Because if I already talked about that last time, I'll just keep going. I honestly can't remember. I talked a little bit with some people online about it, but okay, yes, I did. All right, so I'll keep going then. Yeah, so that would have been the last video chat. Oh, we have one for. Okay, well, okay, for the people who don't want to go back to the other video chat, real quick, it's a perfect example. Oh yeah, I got suckered into a Twitter argument. I'll have to be better at that in the future. Yeah, I'll talk about that. I was pointing out how, this is about something else, but it's definitely related to Unreal. Okay, so they've removed these from the stores. You can't buy them from storefronts anymore, I don't think. And let's say let's pretend all the physical copies are gone of stuff like Unreal Tournament 2003, 2004. You can still take any of those games, install them on your computer, as long as you have an IP address, so this could be a friend with an IP address, or just, I'm sure there's third-party community sites where they'll have like server listings. Enter in the address and connect, and you can be playing those games online. So those games are kill-proof. And it's like so many people don't understand the distinction. And I got in an argument on Twitter with this one person. This is about something else where I was pointing out how PC Gamer was giving a list of like a lot of major game shutdowns for the year. And they said that it's inevitable for online games. And I was pointing out like this is basically just propaganda at this point. And so I point out, except basically almost every multiplayer game from like the late 90s to early to mid 2000s. And the person I got with the argument of was they were basically trying to. Well, at first they didn't understand what I was saying. That they thought I was advocating that every game should be peer-to-peer. It's like, well, no, not necessarily. I mean, the Unreal games didn't operate on a peer-to-peer system exactly. I mean, usually when you mean peer-to-peer, it means like it's kind of shared across people. It's just you could run a server. They gave the server code. That's all it was. So, and then I got to the argument about the games as a service video, that they were, how this is totally unreasonable. And I think they're looking at it from the wrong direction is what, I think they were only looking at it from the perspective of, if you never prepared for this from the design phase of your game, yeah, that could be a hell of a lot of work. I mean, I still think it's necessary for preservation, just not committing fraud, which still needs to be tested by the courts. But it's, what they, God, I lost my train of thought now. But it's kind of a necessity. And I could understand like a grace period or grandfathering in if it was just too much work. I mean, I still would be against that, but I could see that as a compromise. Because you're taking the money, you sold the perpetual license, now you're effectively killing it. So how much work it is almost irrelevant if we're looking at, if that's considered fraud under the law, which it hasn't been tested, it's a gray area, then maybe you should have thought about that before you sold the perpetual license, which would affect the design phase. Yeah, there were a few real snarky comments of people who I felt like they either weren't getting it or they were just kind of trying to be antagonistic. They refused to get it. That's the better way to look at it. So somebody was saying, yeah, like when I mentioned in the video, that's as much work as any other aspect of like game development. So they're saying, so in other words, lots of work. Well, yes, but so is just making any multiplayer game. It's not necessarily more work from the design phase than, no, in fact, I think it is more work doing it that way than just including the server, because then you have to have it all come through you. Whereas if you can have the server, then there's less mandatory support. So it's like, they either weren't getting it or they were just trying to have a snippy reply where they're saying that, oh, so it takes more work to do this. Well, not more work, it just takes work. The same way it takes work to make any game. So when you're getting to the multiplayer phase, if you're designing to have this, be runnable without your support, that just has to be taken into consideration. That's just a parameter of if, that just having multiplayer has several parameters as it is already. So, but yeah, the other argument, they were, I can't tell if they were just emotional or they're just trying to be adversarial or something. They were saying that I said in the video, they put in quotes, just patch it, laughing out loud. It's like, no, I really tried to explain, I understood how much work this is. It's just that there's no, and I explained like every possible frigging alternative except destroying the game, because that's what we're doing right now. And then they also pounced on me about how saying code doesn't go bad. They're saying code goes bad all the time. And I think what we're doing is we're having different definitions of what code going bad means. I think what they meant was that by code going bad means you have code that worked, but then you change the parameters of the operating environment. So you change the hardware or you change the operating system, and now it doesn't work. So by their definition, the code went bad. And I'm saying, no, that's not what it means to me anyway. They're talking the straw man Ross, the most convenient Ross. Yeah. Well, in order for code to go bad, that would mean like you stored it in one place, and then over time, like the medium went bad. Like you had like bit rot, and it flipped the bit in the core code or something, or just the disk went bad and there weren't backup copies. Okay, that's code going bad, and that's a medium problem. Not an innate property of code. You could print code out on paper if you wanted to. Be a very large stack of paper, but so yeah, and man, it's really difficult to get like to get a thought out with that has 2 or 3 really necessariable variables out on Twitter, because there just isn't the length for it. So I knew I shouldn't have gotten to an argument, but I do sometimes try to like clarify what I mean if somebody just clearly doesn't get what I'm saying. And then once I realize they're kind of refusing to get what I'm saying, it's like, okay, well, I'm done here. So, yeah, but see, then the onus isn't necessarily on the code developer. It's on the people who change the. I think that's more on the people changing the operating system, that they need a backwards compatibility option. So yeah, Twitter's not a good place for Twitter's a good place for like announcements or like bringing up topics, but it's not a good place for good discourse. I don't think. Just because of the character limit, you can't get it's harder to get coherent thoughts out. Okay. Let's see. Somebody's asking a question that was literally answered last chat. They're about the medium that had the most influence on history. Okay. Let's see. Okay, they're saying they're new to this. Sure, I can answer this. Got a few points. How do you decide on what games to cover? It's just like raw intuition almost. I'm not sure there is a method to the madness. It's just whatever feels like it's the right game next, or the right kind of game. What music do you listen to, or you have been listening to? I generally prefer like lots of different soundtracks, which is just all kinds of genres in itself. Also electronic stuff, rock and metal. Yeah, that's the general stuff I listen to. But again, soundtracks can cover a wide berth. I mean, like that could, people were talking about bardcore stuff in one of the previous chats. There's plenty of soundtracks that sound like they're medieval music, music made with medieval instruments, that have a calmer pace. There's such a wide variety in soundtracks that it's varies quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. Somebody's saying, what voice actor would be a dream pick for the movie and why? I'm afraid I'm not going to tell you, because then I'm worried when I do auditions, I'm going to get like hundreds of people trying to imitate that person, when I'm going to need a diversity of roles in this. So it's, I don't want to I'll probably repeat this when I make the audition video, but I I heard the late George Romero say when he was like directing crowds to be the zombie people, he would just try to give general pointers, and he wouldn't act out the motion that he as an example, because what would happen is almost everyone would do that exact same motion. And he wanted it to be more organic with people just kind of doing their own sort of shuffling along or thing. So he would just, so I don't want to make that mistake with auditions in terms of examples of voice actors I like for the movie, because I'm going to need more roles than just them. Let's see. So yeah, I guess I can answer that after I have all the roles filled. So. Okay. I just completely spaced out for a second. Like I said, I'm low on sleep here. Oh yeah, they're saying Planet developers comment on their game on the episode of Game Dungeon. I need to go back and look at those. And somebody had a compilation on the forum. Thank you. Feel free to add to that. Thank you for that link. I was unaware of that. I can get kind of I can get kind of swallowed up by the little details, and a lot of stuff gets left by the wayside. I only have so much time in the day, so it's little things like that can, not little in the sense that I've reached the developer, but just comments. Like it's an ocean of comments out there, so I can't keep up with all of it. No, I'll try to give him a mention then on the follow-up if I can. What are some of the, I hadn't seen this one. What are some of the biggest hurdles you felt you had to overcome growing into the position you're at now? Not just YouTube, but life maturity. I'm not sure. Mostly just financial stuff. Just like in the past, I've had incredible stress over financial prospects. Like being able to make sure I'll have enough to buy groceries or pay rent. That's sort of the overwhelming thing. Because I could put a lot of time into stuff, and like I knew how to do that, just projects in general. So yeah, okay, and people are talking about the hell jobs. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see this question earlier, so I don't have a great answer for it. I have to think about it more. I can tell my brain's fading. This one that gets asked a lot. They're saying, have there been any games you wanted to cover on Game Dungeon but didn't or couldn't for one reason or another? Not really. Though, yeah, I think I said Civi 11's, one of his episodes made me think that he pushed it back in line, because it's like, well, maybe I don't need to make it one since he did a pretty good job on this. Oh, considering how much of a pain the animating process is for the movie, have there been times when you wish you'd been able to make a live action film? Oh yeah, definitely. If I had those kinds of resources, I'd seriously consider it. Because the thing, you need more of a budget for live action is the thing. A lot more resources for that sort of thing. Whereas you basically need time for digital to throw at it. That's the whole reason I started Machinima, is I wanted to make movies, but I didn't have the budget to go into I didn't have the budget or reliable actors to really get much made. Whereas I did have time and a computer, so that's how I was able to make Civil Protection. So he's asking if I'll ever review a meme game. I mean, I sort of, it would have to stand on its own as a game. You know, I'm not, I can understand why people like them, but I feel like there's sort of like a, just sort of like a tasty junk food for games where, yeah, there's things you can talk about, but if they're just trying to be sort of silly or stupid, and that's the short and long of it, then it's, I kind of want the game experience, you know, and even if the game I'm going after fails to live up to that, it could be an experience finding out how it failed to do that. So. People are talking about David Cage and Omicron. I do want to go through Omicron. If the gameplay gets too antagonistic for me, then I'll at least watch a playthrough. But yeah, no, it starts off great. Like I was sold on Omicron from the start. Like it has a great start to it. So. Somebody's asking about exclusives, if companies should start re-releasing games from their back catalog as well. I'm all for games being accessible. So yeah, I'm never really against companies re-releasing old games, or, I mean, unless they make it objectively worse, which can happen. But even then, it's not that I'm against the re-release. I just wanted them to release it not broke or not screwed up in some way. Yeah, no, I'm generally against contractual exclusives unless it's like a timed release. Timed releases aren't so bad because then, you know, I feel like I'm all in favor of people being able to more people being able to access games. I don't think this is such a alien concept here. Yeah. Why do you dislike analog sticks so much? I'm garbage aiming with them. Like it's just garbage. Like an actual joystick, where I have more control over the parameters, I'm all right with that. I mean, but it's just like if you look at your appendages, you know, for delicate aiming, all you have is the thumb for that. Whereas on a mouse, you have your whole hand and kind of arm, and I don't know, I just have greater, and a joystick, you have your full hand, arm, and I just have greater control over that. And it's awful for me with analog. Yeah, if you want to know more about this, watch the Strife episode. I go into more detail on that. And you get a direct comparison of me trying to use gamepad aiming. Now, that said, if it's just something where, if it's like to bring up like a quick function or a menu, like if I could just like flick it up or flick it right, and then that's the full motion I need, I'm okay with that. It's not so bad for that, but there's a better analogy, but I'm drawing a blank. It's like, for thumbsticks, it's okay. It's not the same thing exactly, but have you ever done something where you're like putting your weight on something that can roll away from you, so you really have to like keep it kind of constrained tight there to not like have it pop out? It's not the same exactly, but it gives me some of that feeling trying to like control a thumbstick. So, I mean, some people are really good with them, but not me. Somebody's saying you think you need to have grown up using analog sticks to be good with them. Well, no, I'll use an analog stick, just not a thumbstick. Like, if I can use my whole hand, that's different. And even then, there is objective data to backing something. I mean, you can certainly get much better than I am. However, there's objective data that like the the skill ceiling is much higher on other devices because they've tried to. I think was it Microsoft had a version of Shadowgrounds back in like 2010 or something like around there, where they enabled cross-play between gamepads and mouse and keyboard. And the mouse and keyboard people just wiped the floor with them. And they actually did internal testing. And what they found was that pro console gamers, like people at the time who were like, winning tournaments of Halo on the Xbox, were losing in things that matter to aiming compared to people to just like moderate skill level PC users on the mouse and keyboard. However, I'm not sure if they had aim assist. Maybe it evens the playing field if you have aim assist on a gamepad. So, and there's a famous video where apparently there was like a trash talking session online where about the aiming necessary, and it escalated to them agreeing to playing a round of Quake 3 in a 1v1 match where one guy was using the gamepad and one guy was using a mouse, and the results were not close. I'll try and have a link to that so I think there really is something to it, to being able to have control over your whole hand. Now that said, if you were grown up playing nothing but thumbstick, you could probably be good enough for like the vast majority of games to where it's just not even an issue for you. But for me, man, it's not fun. So I do like controllers a lot for 2D games like platformers, but even then I'm using like the D-pad, this part. Yeah, actually that works out pretty well for me in games like, I was playing one game, it's called Soldiers, S-O-U-L, and I sort of reverse map things, and so if and they had like a lot of menu functions tied to it, so if I wanted to like do a heal, I can just flip up the thumbstick, and that's fine, because that's just a simple menu function. I don't need like any real dexterity for that. It works out, so. But yeah, I mean, obviously if you like it better, use what you want. I mean, but there's subjective and objective reasons I don't like it. So. In a first contact scenario with I didn't see this one. In a first contact scenario with aliens, how do you foresee the planet reacting? For argument's side, let's say it's undeniable and highly public. Friendly aliens touch down the UFO in a city. Societal breakdown? Well, it really depends on the aliens. I guess we'll keep it kind of neutral and say they're just saying hi. They're like a expedition team or something like that, and they're letting you know that like there's other life. So they're not like maybe looking to exchange knowledge. So I don't think you'd have societal breakdown. I mean, sudden change for the better, possibly. I mean, it might put our own existence in perspective. Maybe it's like, how you can act better around other people than if you're just by yourself. You get a little more dressed up and like present yourself better. Maybe we'll be a little bit more like that. Try to put on our good face. A week's amusement, then nothing really changes. No, that would have a long-term sort of cultural changes for sure, philosophical. Maybe camera's kind of crooked now. Maybe what? Yeah, there we go. Maybe technologically, we have like an exchange program. Like we're better at some stuff, they're better at other stuff. But you could also have a journeyman project incident where we have an assassin there ready to take him out, and that causes that changes the timeline in such a massively negative way that we never really recover. It would not put it past me to see some government agency do something like that because they have their own reasons and not good reasons. So yeah, it's it would be important for them to understand us pretty fast, I think, so they know what to expect and what to be on guard for. But because that's the thing, like I think 99% of people would be, well, maybe less than 99% of people, but well, no, 99% of people would think like, okay, well, we shouldn't. We should maybe learn. No, probably less. No, it would be less than 99%. Peaceful coexistence on some level. Then maybe some of them want them to stay back on their planet and just not come to Earth, but others would want more full integration or something like that, or just exchange. But then you have the really tiny minority that like that's it. They're up on the bell tower ready for them, with a sniper rifle. And it's like that small minority is what we would, unfortunately, can have the most impact, and we need to be on guard for. So, yeah, no, it's hard to say. And this is I'm just talking about like a first contact, generally peaceful aliens. Obviously, if they're invading or if they're doing a to serve man move, or it would be different. Did you know that Fallout 1 and 2 are being remade as Doom clones? I saw some footage of that. Do you think you'd enjoy them? I for sure would want to see some of Fallout from that perspective. I don't know if I'd want to do the turn-based combat, though. So, I mean, I have gone through them, but it's not... Turn-based combat is not something I look forward to. I don't know why I saw this question so much farther down. I took notes for this one. Is there a meme that makes you laugh or that you find particularly funny every time you see it? Which one would that be? There are, and I've forgotten most of them, but there are a few that I was able to remember. Like, these aren't the funniest ones. There's some that like I found really funny, but I forgot them. So, but I made notes of a few, and I even have links to some of to them. Okay, and I'll put them in the chat. The first one is Old Economy Steve, where that says something like, loses job, finds another one on the way home. Like, just the concept of that, it just made me laugh, makes me laugh. So these aren't the top tier memes out there. I'm not really on top of all the memes. But yeah, I love that one. Just the concept. Oh, I lost my job. I guess I'll get another. Yeah, get another one on the way home. Okay. Another one is Gowron Eyes from Star Trek. I have a link to that one. It's like, yeah, when you want the waiter's attention, give them Gowron Eyes. And if you're listening to this, I'm afraid you have to see this. I'll put links to all these in the description also. This is one you have to see it. It doesn't do it justice to describe it, but yeah. Oh wow. So that's great. Somebody put it in the chat. I didn't know that was an option for Twitch. I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that one I always like. And another one I remember is Oh Great Road, Tell Me Your Secrets. This is another one you need to see it. I'm putting that one in the chat. Let's see if I'm doing the right. Yeah, I'm listening. Oh Mighty Road, Tell Me Your Secrets. So it's. I'm sure there's a lot more, but I'm not the meme king or anything. But I'll try to make a note of it if I ever come across ones that like I really like. These are just ones I remember that like they got a laugh out of me when I saw them. Yeah. And 2 of those are visual ones. Yeah, I'll try to remember to take notes if I see any like real top tier ones, or for my taste. You know, I'm sure you can do much better than these, but it's yeah. These are just the ones that made it into my long-term memory. Okay. Oh yeah, I was confused by this one. They're saying lots of episodes you have to emulate Windows to play certain games. It's worth mentioning I'm on Windows when I'm doing this. So, uh, have you considered getting a small, thin client PC to run an older operating system? And saying that might require a capture card, but could help with the issues of emulation. Well, I got confused because a thin, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought a thin client is when you just have it, you're basically doing all the processing somewhere else or the functionality, and the thin client is just to access it. So like a Stadia device would be a thin client because all the processing is doing on the doing it on the server side with, you know, big racks of machines. And the thin client is basically just to send your input to it and get the, okay, they mean literally thin. I see. Like but they're saying like a Raspberry Pi. Well, a Raspberry Pi wouldn't have any advantage over just running it on my own system, I don't think, because it's still emulation at that point. I have more, my system's going to have more resources to use it. I mean, like even then I was mentioning with like the anti-aliasing, forcing that on the driver's side. That's not something a Raspberry Pi could do. I mean, not on the level I'm talking about. So it's now there is the argument of having legacy hardware, in which case it wouldn't really be a thin client. But like if I wanted to like just run Windows XP or something natively, that would have advantages. But I just it's a psychological thing for me, and that it makes me feel kind of trapped. That like, well, what if this hardware goes bad, and then it's going to be even more expensive to track down this stuff as like the old hardware disappears, you know, or there's less of it to go around. So it's, yeah, I'm not really seeing much of advantage for it as like a, yeah, of a thin client or doing it natively, except maybe some of the recording stuff. I mean, I guess, yeah, isn't a thin client just a modern term for a terminal PC? Yeah, yeah, basically. I mean, there's like a blurring of it. Like, you could argue Chrome OS is kind of a thin client, but it does some process, and it doesn't have to be online. I mean, you can have like local thin clients where like, so you have like a beefy machine with has lots of processing power, but like in the next room, you're just all it's doing is processing the video and some what the somebody's asking in the chat. I have an answer for one of your questions. Look up robot jobs video on my channel. So he's asking about AI. No, I can talk about AI in a minute if people want. Let's see. But yeah, it's like I don't like being tied to the hardware. You know, I like having a modern system and having backwards compatibility, you know, and a modern system that's like 10 times more powerful than what was available at the time. Because then if that part dies, I can just get another part that's for sale to replace it. I don't have to like hunt down some legacy part and just, and there's plenty of hurdles too with older hardware too, getting it running on the older operating system. But okay, it sounds like the chat wants me to talk about AI. Let me just get through a few more questions, and maybe we'll get to AI then. Yeah, I was confused about this one. Are prisons just gated communities? No. There are lots of very objective differences. I would take a gated community over a prison any day. So, I mean, maybe if it was like an exceptionally lush white collar prison for rich people, but no, I think this prison's just being silly. Yeah, you never know on the internet with people asking. Okay, I'll answer this because I should take care of this for next time. In your YouTube account's About tab, you link to the first episode of Freeman's Mind. Why is that? Do you think it's a good entry video for newcomers to your channel? I may not have touched that section in maybe 10 years. I forgot it even existed. So I should probably update that. And I kind of dread having to do like self-promotional stuff, but I'll think of something. So thanks for pointing that out. I need to check also, like on YouTube, they have an option for business address, and I leave my email address there so people can send me an email if they don't go to the website and find my email address that way. But I'm like on the fence as far as taking it down there, because I get so many offers to have some 60 to 90 second promotion in the videos, trying to sell like a mobile game or a wallet or a VPN, that I'm not going to do that unless I absolutely have to financially. And even then I have to I'm going to be rethinking everything. Like I would almost be considering like having an SOS out to the community and see if anybody has just like an extra cabin on property or something we could stay at instead, than do that, to just not ruin the experience for people. So, I mean, now I would want that up there if somebody like wanted to do like a collaborative thing, or, so it's not really business, but, or maybe they really wanted me for like a voice acting role, even though I'm trying to turn most of those down because I'm too busy. But you know, stuff that's that. But like I'm getting like hundreds of these now to put something on the. I mean, I guess it's a good sign for the health of the channel. But so I'm saying, come on, Ross, we'll all understand if we see a Raid Shadow Legend stub. Yeah, but I won't understand. I'll understand, but that's gonna bother me. So it's like with the movie, you know. Like I want to make, that's gonna bother me if I don't make more progress on that. So let's see. Yes, I don't know. It's yes. Maybe I'll put that in the about. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to filter out. If I can just put a note saying, please do not contact me for like ads in the middle of the video. If I can just add that, that's all I need to add. But I don't know. It's not ruining my life or anything, but it's getting spammy. So on the email. Okay, I unfortunately found out about this pretty late. They're saying, any thoughts about Dungeons and Dragons news? And there's a lot of, okay, this sounds like somebody said in the chat, Legal covered this. So yeah, you probably want to listen to a lawyer more about this than me. But apparently they made it open that people could do like derivative stuff of Dungeons and Dragons, or like tons of third-party content sell for free, but then they had a clause in their contract that said it's not open. So they lie, like they're like outright lying about things. Now, I feel like, I mean, I don't have anything particularly insightful to say, so much as I feel like this is what every company does the bigger they get and the more they think they can get away with it. And Wizards of the Coast is getting pretty big. I mean, they have Dungeons and Dragons, they have Magic the Gathering, they probably have a lot of other IPs not even aware of. Uh, but it's just, I guess this doesn't get quite the same fire under me as games as a service, because I bet there's lots of underground Dungeons and Dragons stuff you could do. I mean, yeah, or maybe they backpedaled it, but they're like it's obviously going to suppress the intellectual property as a whole, and nobody really wants that except the lawyers, but they don't even realize that's what they're doing, or they don't care really. Yeah, I guess the shareholders are. So it's just, I kind of see this happening to almost every company, just at different rates, and it's unfortunate, and I don't like it. And yeah, I'm glad people are putting up resistance to it. But yeah, it doesn't quite light the same fire for me, because with games as a service, it gets to be impossible. Whereas if you want to have an underground Dungeons and Dragons game, you can do it. I mean, but it's obviously not. It's obviously a blow. Like, let's say you wanted to stream your games. Now, if you do that, you're gonna get hit with a copyright claim or something. So it's, yeah, no normal person likes it. This is something where it's like a really small minority of people who have the power doing something that's incredibly unpopular. This is kind of why I say, like, it's not 100%, but if you're just gonna play the odds, populist solutions and sentiment tend to come up with better solutions and reasonable answers to most, as long as there's like good information being presented, the vast majority of the time. Whereas if you leave things to just people who have the power, to people who have power, then it's gonna what, you're gonna have worse results percentage wise, I think. Like, I think I saw an article recently that the CEO of Ubisoft was saying, they had their stock price drop a bunch, and he made this statement saying, the ball's in your court now for the development teams to turn this around. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's a company is a hierarchical organization. What the CEO says is what goes. So, what the shareholders say, maybe the CEO can push back a little bit to the shareholders, but what the CEO says, that stuff trickles down, and the managers do what the CEO says, and then what they say trickles down. And so it's like, no, they're just saying the ball's in your court to the developers. So in other words, the artists, the programmers, the composers, stuff like that. Not the. So it's like, okay. So if the ball's in their court, that means that if we were to take him honestly, which you shouldn't, that would mean that means, okay, they get to decide what game they're gonna make. They're gonna set the deadlines. They're gonna set the scope. They're gonna set the prices. They're gonna set who's the audience, and of course they're not gonna let them do any of that. So I mean, so you just have this. I think I have someone who's like kind of works closer to like kind of like the executive types, and I think you have a mix of, sometimes it's just incredible. Well, I think it's quite often very, very dishonest behavior to just make them look good, to sound good at all costs, while often acting like whip crackers, for companies. That tends to be the norm. But even among executives, it's unclear to me how many know they're just purely doing this for money and going through the motions of pretending to not be monsters. And then there's some that are just flat out delusional and believe that this is all them. Like, they are kind of changing history, and none of this would be possible without like them and other people like them, and they really believe that. So it's I don't know. what's going on with Dungeons and Dragons sounds like without knowing more details, this sounds like a clear reflection of that sort of behavior where things really do get to be not helpful from a lot of companies the bigger they get. So, and we get lucky when they're competent. We're lucky when you have a company that's still ruthless and does all the same other crap, but they understand the need to make a good product. And they're not so delusional or detached that they lose sight of that or just don't even understand what their product is. So, and that happens more than you think, is my understanding. So, yeah, it's... You shouldn't look... All I can say is you should not look through anything a major corporation says, and that comes out of their mouth, as though they are reasonable people in any fashion. You should look at this like they will sell their mother to make to make their stock price go up 5 cents. And if you look at it through that perspective, you'll have a pretty consistent picture of the vast majority of like major corporations. So they don't think like normal people for the vast majority of them, because if they did, they wouldn't get to be. If they did, they wouldn't get to be where they are and stay there. You know, it takes a certain mentality for that. Okay. I'm afraid I'm gonna skip some more questions because I've been going on a while. But I'll answer this one quick. They're saying, would I consider having a series to Dead Game News or something like Dead Game Revival? No, I don't even like making the Dead Game News ones as it is. I'd rather just make more stuff like Game Dungeon or Freeman's Mind or other kind of creative stuff. But the other thing is, I don't want to misrepresent the problem. Like if I did a success story for every time, because it's like if I did a success story for every time I had a Dead Game News, I would probably be misrepresenting it by like 50-1, because that's such a rare exception when that happens, that they do the right thing. No, it's two things. It's two things. Because if we're talking about online games, it's probably like, I think in the video when I made it, it was like 3% or less of the time that they do the right thing, and it's good. However, if I'm showing it like 1-1 or even like 10-1, I'm misrepresenting how bad it is, and I think it's probably less than 3% now. But the other thing is that not all games are structured like this. In fact, I'm aware the vast majority of games, you may have to jump through some hoops, but you can keep them and continue playing them, and they can't take that away from you. Again, you might have to jump through some more and more hoops for modern ones. And I recognize that, and I'm glad people are doing I'm glad people are doing it the right way and want people to play the games that they made and be able for them to last. But yeah, okay, this just analogy just popped in my head. It's kind of like, I just wanted to focus on the problem so it stops. So like, say you have a class full of kids and a couple of kids keep setting fire to things. It's like, no, you hone in on that. And so it's like, so we're not really gonna talk about the kids that didn't set fire to things. It's like, yeah, we're glad you didn't. But I'm glad you made the game. You can praise the game or something. But it's like, this is such a fundamental aspect of like, don't destroy the game, that I feel like we shouldn't have to like pat them on the back every time they do that. But I mean, yeah, releasing source code, that's great. I'm glad when that happens. But I feel like that usually gets a fair amount of coverage anyway. But it's like, destroying him is about basically the worst thing you can do to the game. So yeah. Yeah, somebody's saying in the chat, like, why did you make me do this? I just wanted to play video games. Exactly. Like in a sane world, this should be a requirement, to just not have the game designed to be destroyed. But destruction is a part of human nature. Yes, but it's usually not the dominant trait of someone who specifically creates something to destroy what they created. Like, that's like saying, like, well, I'm creating videos. That's like saying, okay, it's a part of human nature for video creators to destroy all their videos after like 3 or 4 years. It's like, no, not really. No. It's like maybe they want to go out and smash a beer bottle or something, or maybe you play a game where you blow stuff up and you feed your urge that way. I mean, yeah. Plus, yeah, I mean, it's like usually creative people are known for creating things, and they generally are fine with wanting to hold on to what they created, especially if it doesn't cost them anything. Like it's digital. You can make infinite copies. Hey, we were talking about in the chat, developers commenting on the videos I made because they're probably glad, oh, hey, I'm glad this game got some more attention, even if it's long after the fact. So it's, yeah, again, the developers who actually want their games to die are quite rare. Like, that's like the flock. It's like a performance art kind of thing. So it's, yeah, saying it's part of human nature. Yeah, sure, destruction is, but not in this context. It sure isn't. That's, yeah. I mean, maybe if you were like super emotional and you feel like you created a monster, okay. But again, that's the exception. Most people are happy. I think the vast majority of developers are happy to have you enjoy their game. So. Oh, okay. They're saying for the Dungeons and Dragons, creators won't be able to hold on to the things they create. Oh, yeah. Oh, so they can like retroactively claim ownership. Oh, so they're trying to pull like what Blizzard did. Yeah, that's really bad. It does sound something like we do need the law to intervene if it's that bad. If they're taking everything that's been made back retroactively, then yeah, that's like even if the contract says they can do that, which I have no idea, but for sake of argument, um, then we're gonna have to timestamp this to have me continuing the Dungeons and Dragons thing. Then yeah, that's really bad. So that's so bad I think that does warrant having the law intervene. Though I guess I feel like they're gonna find many ways to just. It gives me mixed feelings because like let's say okay, we take this, it goes all the way to Supreme Court and they say you cannot mislead people into think when you have a license that appeared to be open of being able to take it back once you've bestowed that. Okay, fine. So we would have won that victory, but then companies are just going to keep locking everything down and just never let everything open in the future. So it's like, it would be kind of a bittersweet victory if that happened but even that is necessary. Even that much is still necessary. So, yeah, it's, yeah, well, again, I'm thinking maybe I miss, again, I was kind of late coming into this. And believe it or not, I really don't enjoy reading about things that are going on that are terrible with the law. Like, I mean, yeah, it's a little more in my wheelhouse because I like fantasy stuff, but this is one of those where I'm busy enough, and I hope people can push back against it. So, okay, a few more questions. So it's saying if I'm aware of the Bloodborne PlayStation 1 demake. Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that eventually we'll either get a Bloodborne port or PlayStation 3 emulation will get to the point that you can run it that way. So I'd rather hold out for the real deal. I mean, it's not. I think the odds are decent on either of those scenarios. So it's saying at the end of the game, at the end of the Clans episode, did the game really lock up at the word problems? I don't remember the details of it. It locked up exactly where you saw it. If I was adding problems to the narration, I might have timed it to match up with that. But if the game itself said that, that's as it happened. So same for the blue screen, and it's pretty much the same in all the games. I was gonna say the blue screen, Armed and Delirious, and sometimes I line up my dialogue to go to sort of reenact my initial reactions. So. Oh, somebody's saying PlayStation 4 emulator. Yeah, my mistake. So, yeah, it could take a while. But I imagine that, if there's one thing I'll say about fans of, From Software games, it's that they're quite determined. So I imagine there are some very determined people to bring Bloodborne over to the PC. Actually, mentioning From Software, I may have mentioned this last time. I'm gonna have to start checking roadtovr.com. Every month they're giving updates on AAA titles that have received like kind of full VR treatment mods. And Dark Souls was on there. So you could play, it sounds like you could play Dark Souls full VR mode modded now. So yeah, there are reasons to want to bring it over to PC. Okay, I am gonna skip some more questions. Sorry, just because I've been going on too long. Let's see. Skipping more questions. Someone's saying the fog is coming. Apparently it's a meme I'm out of the loop on. But my first thought of that was the movie The Fog, which I think actually isn't that great. It's not Carpenter's strongest, but The Mist is pretty solid. That's a solid movie. I'm skipping more. Oh, wow, okay. Let's see. Somebody's painting an Avatar movie scenario. If I was in that, if I would be accepted by the tribe. I think, well, based on the one I saw in the movie, I probably could be, but I don't think I'd really want that job. And they have more questions about the Avatar thing. I don't think ambassador's my real calling here. Okay, skipping more. Oh, and somebody answered the. I love it when this happens. When I'm not sure what my answer would be, and somebody answers it, and they're like, "Oh, perfect, that would be my answer." Yeah, it's great when I can crowdsource these answers. There's saying, "Who's your favorite celebrity chef?" And I've watched basically no celebrity chefs, and the first reply was. So it's, oh, perfect. The Swedish chef from Muppets. Absolutely. Yeah. Hands down. Somebody's recommending the game Time Commando, and I went and looked at that, and it looks promising, but it's like the aesthetics of it just, I don't know, I don't like it so much. It's not the 2.5D look to it. It's just the color, the settings. It's not like grabbing me. But okay, I haven't heard of Silico. They're saying it's Fear meets GZ Doom on steroids. Sounds like a solid formula, you know. Okay, I'm just skipping more because there's so many this time, and I went on longer than I planned to. You just have to get more votes next time, guys. Sorry. This is the... Oh yeah, I saw some people saying they don't like Reddit and don't want to sign up for it. I'm not trying to push Reddit. It's just that they have the voting system. That's why I use it. Some were saying I should use the YouTube comments. Put it like this, I'll defer to the crowds. However, there's a real chance some questions might just disappear. I've had that happen before, where somebody like gave a comment on a YouTube video, and I gave them a reply, and then I go back look at it, and it's just gone. Like, I cannot find it. And then I would even, sometimes if it was early on before it got flooded with comments, I would even go and just scroll down all the way and then do a search for a word that I knew was in there, and bam, it's just not there. It's just disappeared. So it's like, and this has happened more than a few times. So YouTube comments are just a crapshoot. But if people would rather prefer, maybe not right away, but people would prefer I do that over Reddit, so we're just whatever gets the most thumbs up or something, we could switch to that if you really wanted to. But I don't know. Like, it could just be like a vocal minority, so I don't really have a horse in the race, just that I want people to be able to vote on which questions get the most attention. Because as you can see, I'm skipping a lot. So I don't have time to do all of them, so I want the ones people most want to hear about coming to the top. Okay. I've talked about NFTs in a previous video chat. Is a game's modability a make or break for you when you're looking at new games to buy or get into? No, it's not really. But I also agree with what else they say. It annoys me when allowing mods used to be an acceptable standard for most games, and now it's considered a rarity. Yeah, I also feel the same way. I mean, I like being able to mod it, but sometimes the mods I want are pretty basic, like, field of view mod, or VR. I mean, stereoscopic rendering, yeah. But it doesn't necessarily. It just depends on what the game's doing. Sometimes, if I'm seeing a problem that's really gonna bug me, then yeah. Okay, you can do the @Ross broadcast and ask me questions. I'm finished. I'm looking at the last ones here, and I'll try to get to a few before I go. I'm getting pretty hungry. Questions about bullet sponges. Okay, so sorry I skipped so many, but this went on for hours, so you can. How do you get your games most of the time nowadays? Is digital copies like Steam, or do you prefer CD copy? It's almost all digital. I mean, geez, the CD copy is not real. Since I moved to Poland, I converted almost all of my CD or DVD collection of discs to ISO images or the equivalent, and backed them up on hard drives because I just wouldn't have been able to take it on the plane. It'd been too much weight. And I've gone all digital for a long time now. It's just a practicality thing. I mean, that said, I'm no fan of DRM, but it's, let's see. Besides, the physical doesn't protect you necessarily. It's all DRM. That's what I was gonna say, because you could have I have a physical copy of Darkspore. So, okay. Can you rank the David Cage game premises you find least most interesting that you're gonna play? Oh, I don't even. I guess. Okay, we have a lot of questions. Okay, super fast. Heavy Rain sounds like it might be the most kind of mature one. I mean, I know so little about them. Oh no, Omicron's top of my list. I like the theme. After that, Heavy Rain's sounds like the most mature one, but it may not be as imaginative. So, Detroit Become Human might be next, and then I guess Beyond Two Souls, because that one might be more imaginative, but it sounds like it might be like more drama laced than I want. So I don't know. This is just knee-jerk reactions. I could be totally wrong. I've tried to stay in the dark on them because I was hoping I might eventually play them. I have not seen the YouTube cartoon A Fox in Space, a film noir version of Star Fox. Could be entertaining. What are you gonna have for dinner? Probably chicken and zucchini. That won't mess up my skin too badly. Okay, you're sent back in time to late Carboniferous. Not sure which period that was. The Age of Giant Bugs. Okay, assuming the oxygen doesn't kill you, do you think you'd survive or curl up in horror? No, I'd survive. You know what? The X-Files, Mulder has the perfect quote on my attitude about bugs. He says, when Scully was talking about him, saying, "Oh, it's normal to have a phobia," it's like, no, I'm not afraid of them. I just hate them. That's how it is. It's. So yeah, I could survive. I mean, barring other things, though, I could survive psychologically. I can survive a lot of things psychologically. Would you consider the movie your magnum opus? So far. I think I could even top the movie, but out of everything I've done, I think it'll top it. I can see even better ideas, but the movie I can get made. So, what is your absolute favorite game? I don't have a single one. Have you learned Polish yet? No, I need to learn more. That's one of my goals for this year, is to get more serious about it. Once I get a little more top of work, I have a plan for. Oh, somebody has reverse engineered Celius too, or doing a lot on it. Okay, that's great. You got to talk to Sean Puckett about it. Should I just present things and how they are, go all in on the alien replica Sean theory? Hey, it's up to you, you know? It's your video. I look at my videos with, if I was the audience member, what would entertain me more? Or when I can. Sometimes I lose sight, but so that's, I would be more entertained by like there's the account. It was put on his computer by aliens. Let's go. Yeah. How are your new choice of beans doing? I haven't had beans in a long time because I got to figure out what's wrong with me, with my skin issue. What do you think of RPGs using AIs to automatically generate NPC dialogue based on what the player types? I think it has a lot of potential. I mean, don't get too cheap on it, but you know, if it's well trained, that could breathe a lot of life into like really open-ended games, where like each RPG session really could be a different experience and not just a little bit. So yeah, I think AI can kick open so many doors. I'm really interested in. Okay, my wife's knocking on the door. I should wrap it up soon. We're in the final round. I'm answering live questions. Okay, she's still knocking. I'm not sure what to interpret then. Okay. Would you consider watching the upcoming Warhammer 40K show, which is being produced by Henry Cavill? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a rich intellectual property. I mean, I don't like what Games Workshop did to the fans of it, but I mean, lots of potential there. And the thing is, most of the stuff I heard about isn't even the coolest. Like the stuff you're more likely to hear about in Warhammer, like the mainstream stuff, like the Imperium and the Orcs and the Chaos Marines and stuff. That's not even the coolest stuff, in my opinion. So it's all these planets with all these phenomena going on them, or different societies and different of them. I mean, I guess the warp's pretty awesome. The warp's pretty cool. So, but yeah, I love how like mysterious Warhammer 40K is the deeper you get into it. Like where the Tyranids come from. like what's going on with them, like really. You know, that a lot of mysteries in Warhammer 40K. And I lost my spot. Oh, okay, it's down. Okay, allergies that come from supplements. Did you catch the Cyberpunk 2077 anime? No, I'm afraid I haven't. Okay, so that's all the... I think we had good AI questions this time, but I'm running out of time, so if you want me to talk more about AI, like upvote them on the next chat for February. So, okay, I'm gonna go. Thanks for tuning in. More videos are coming. It's just... This is gonna... There'll be plenty to discuss on this side video I'm doing. I'll say that. I think this one will absolutely spur conversation. So I'll end it there. All right, I'll see you.